Was the correct pronunciation of your last name Demers?
Demers works.
Yes. And we're live. Second podcast of 2016. Phil, how you feel about that?
I'm ecstatic, Joe. I can't even begin to thank you for this. And honestly, if it wasn't for my having been on this podcast 2 years ago and returning now in a very timely manner, I think I'd be a fish dead out of water.
What do you mean?
Well, in terms of the cause that I sort of represent and all the multiple lawsuits that are levied against all the animal activists that that I'm amongst.
Well, let's explain to everybody who is unfamiliar. You had a lawsuit with Marine World. You used to work for Marine World. Marineland,
yes.
Excuse me, which is like SeaWorld for Canada, something like that, a type of thing, a type of SeaWorld, right?
SeaWorld's a day at the spa for animals compared to Marineland, but yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
It's that much worse.
Significantly worse.
Whoa. So you worked for them. You were released from your job, fired as it were.
I quit voluntarily. I quit amidst a...
Did they say you were fired?
No.
No, everybody admits you quit.
I never gave them the opportunity to fire me. I made the
they
first
were going
move.
to fire you?
I think that's the inclination I had at the time.
But you were a trainer, and I think you opened up a lot of people's eyes to it. This is actually pre-Blackfish, right?
This was pre-Blackfish.
Yeah, you came on. I ate pot candy and was in Hawaii once, like many years ago, and I had an experience with dolphins where these dolphins we were fishing and these dolphins were coming by the boat and they were jumping and playing with us, and I remember thinking like they might as well be people. They might as well be like water people or something. It's something weird about this. Like they're enjoying playing with us. Like as we yell to them, they do more stuff. Like they came by and they were jumping and they were clearly looking at us when they jumped through the water. And I'd never been to SeaWorld before because I had seen some documentaries on dolphins and I knew they were really smart. And I'd seen some documentaries on orcas as well. And it just always seemed really fucked up to me that they make them stay in these swimming pools. But when you came on the podcast 2 years ago and illuminated what it's like behind the scenes, at least at Marineland, it was horrific, man. And I got a lot of tweets from people and Facebook messages that said they would never go to SeaWorld or Marineland again. And then they realized really what it was. Then the documentary Blackfish came out, and the whole world was sort of forced to take a look at this and understand that these animals are super intelligent. Just because they can't manipulate things, just because they can't pick things up and they can't write their name, they can't send you an email. In their environment, that's unnecessary. In their environment, they're in the natural world. They're moving through 3D space in the water. They have free food and fish. They have a huge community of fellow orcas and fellow dolphins, and they communicate with each other through a very complex language that we barely understand. They have a fucking language. Not like monkeys go, ooh, ooh, and the other monkey goes, ah, ah, like kind of a language. No, they have a complex language with dialects. They might as well be water people.
They've already evolved to be the top predator of the sea, so there's no need for them to learn to email. They have no use for it. So they're already the absolute top predators of the sea.
Yeah, that's a way to look at it, right? Like we have this kind of view of our position being the top. I mean, we're kind of the top predator, but we're only the top predator because of our minds, because we figured out how to manipulate things. They have huge minds. They have incredible brains. And then they eat everything they want. Then they don't need to evolve any further. They've sort of mastered their domain.
And they're amazingly adaptable. They evolve in every which capacity to be able to adjust to the ever-changing world. Killer whales now. I recently watched a documentary, and on account of the melting ice in the Arctic in the summer, there's the ice floes are receding. They're becoming smaller and smaller every year. So now orcas are now going into territories that they'd never had before. And the Inuit have documented that they've seen orcas actually hunt bow whales, which are 50 ton larger than an orca itself. And what they do is they isolate the animal, they bite their fins, they hold them underwater while another orca goes on top of their blowhole to try to drown it. I mean, this is amazing adapting.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. Well, that's where they got their name, killer whales, from killing whales.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of people think they're a type of whale. They're actually a cousin to a dolphin.
Mm-hmm. That's right. They're dolphins. They're just the largest dolphin in the dolphin family.
They eat dolphins too, which is kind of fucked up.
Killer whales.
Well, humans eat monkeys.
Unbeknownst to most, killer whales are, and you have to sort of disassociate things. You have to sort of draw a line between killer whales being cute and loving and just how, if you want to use the word sadistic, they are. They are evil in the way that they hunt and kill. They are merciless, you know?
Well, we have this idea of Earth, you know, being like the smart things. We're supposed to be compassionate, and we're supposed to like be the stewards of the land and take care of the little chipmunks and all the other animals. But it's just because we're so far ahead of all the other animals that we kind of, we kind of feel bad. And the way we treat each other, we want to kind of treat other animals that way, which is why, you know, animal rights organizations and all these people that really, really love and care about animals, that's where they sort of come under fire. It's because they want people to treat animals different than animals treat animals. So animals are fucking mean as shit to each other, and that's just the way of the world.
One of the videos that stood out for me and actually was like a sort of a wake-up call for me was just how nasty nature is. And it was a video that you actually shared, and it was of a bear taking down a deer.
And so when dude's yard?
Yeah, in that guy's backyard.
Yeah.
I mean, that's tough to watch, right?
It is. It was screaming.
Yeah.
The deer was screaming. The bear was just eating it.
Like, ferociously.
Well, that's the thing about bears as opposed to cats. When a cat gets a deer, they go right for the neck and they kill it pretty quick because that's all they do. But bears do a lot of things. They eat berries and roots and plants, so they don't always kill things. As a matter of fact, they probably eat more plant matter than they do animal matter. So when they kill things, they basically just hold these things down and start eating.
It's a question of opportunity, I guess, if it arises. They're hungry.
Well, they eat a lot of fawns. That's a big issue in Canada, where you're from, sir.
That's right.
They eat a lot of moose, like moose calves and deer fawns. They eat them like as they're coming out. They actually smell the placenta and like the all the stuff that surrounds the baby, and they'll find these moose as they're giving birth and just literally pull them right out of their body. It's fucked up.
You know, I'm an animal rights activist by, I suppose that's just the label that I've been given. But I should mention that there are a lot of animal rights activists that owe you a great deal of credit for your sort of I want to use your sort of advocacy, despite the fact that there's a stark line between those who believe in, you know, not killing animals and everything else. But then there are also other people that can appreciate how nature operates, predator-prey relationship, and can also appreciate that, you know, at least in what you've said before, you yourself are opposed to the captivity of animals. I mean, the last time we were on, you mentioned of going to a zoo and maybe eating a pot cookie and, you know, having a look at the monkeys and being like, you're throwing bows through animals, and I very much respect the fact that the way that you hunt and the way that you eat is the kill what you eat movement, or whatever you want to call it. And as an animal rights activist, I can say that is a far more responsible way than, you know, when I take a look at the factory farming things and whatnot. But I forget the point I was making.
Well, I know what you're saying, that it sort of almost would seem like I'd be against them in some sort of a way because I eat meat. But the reality is a lot of animal rights activists have fucking cats, man. And they feed their cats cat food. And guess what? That shit ain't growing on a cat food tree. You know, there's a reality to the world, and cats are brutal. Cats are vicious little fuckers, and they need protein. And if you have a cat, and I have 2 of them, I love them. They're awesome. They come cuddle with me when I'm watching TV.
On any given day, I've got 5 cats, 3 that I claim as my own, 2 that just sort of come and go at will.
Wild cats?
Well, one a neighbor sort of, I would say that he's sort of neglected it in terms of how you care for a domestic cat. And when he moved away, he said, look, you know, you take care of this cat, which I did. On my second level balcony, I built this thing I called the Taj McKitty. It was this place where the cat could come live in the winter, right? And it's real cold. And so he said, you know, do you want to keep this cat? Sure. So I got it fixed and whatnot. And he likes to show his gratitude by bringing us baby rabbits. If you've ever seen a baby rabbit, the cutest thing in the world. And he maliciously licks them down to the point of just chewing them until the sound stops and leaving them as gifts. And you can't help but love Eugene. I mean, Eugene is an amazing and loving cat. He's also just a cold-blooded killer.
That's why they're alive. We don't want to think about it that way, but animals today that are alive today in 2016 are alive because their ancestors, especially predators like cats, were fucking vicious. They were vicious and ruthless, and they made sure they killed everything they could, because if you don't kill that little baby rabbit, there might not be anything left for you to eat that day, and you might starve, or you might be too weak to get away from something that wants to kill you.
Exactly.
You might be too weak to get away from a wolf, or you might be, we have a beautiful situation. We go to the store, we buy food that someone else killed for us, and we can get it every time. It's not like a rare thing, like you have to wait for it, or you have to put in a lot of effort to get it. Throughout human history, it's always been difficult to acquire food, until recently. Recently, it's become so ridiculous, you don't even have to get out of your fucking car to eat. You literally pull into a fucking drive-thru, you hand these people paper, within seconds, they hand you already cooked meat in a sandwich, a ground beef sandwich. You put it on your seat, they give you a glass of liquid sweet shit, you stick that in your little cup holder, and you're eating. That's insane. Never before in human history has that happened. And that lack of effort and lack of connection has bred a lot of people that have a really distorted understanding of life itself, really distorted understanding of what it takes to make a ground beef sandwich. If you want to raise a cow yourself and go through that whole thing, I have a few friends that do it. I have my good friend Doug in Wisconsin. He grows his own cows. They're all grass-fed, and he gave me some meat from it last time I was there, and he does it all himself. He shoots them himself. I mean, he does the whole deed. He butchers them, he hangs them, the whole deed.
Yeah.
And that guy understands what it takes to make a ground beef sandwich. But most of us just pull into that drive-thru.
I think it's a privileged perspective. It's people that have never had to do anything like that.
Yeah.
Put any effort in raising their food. I have friends that are farmers, and it's the same story. And they love and respect their animals through and through. But at the end of the day, it becomes a steak.
It sounds like a contradiction, right? Loving your animal, but killing it.
I think in defense of anyone that likes to call out hypocrisy is that you have to take a look at the fact that there's hypocrisy in absolutely everything you do. I mean, the fact alone that, and I'm going to use vegans as an example, if you're going to look at what an abomination of nature is, really the functions of society as a whole, a physical city is an abomination of nature.
Yeah.
So if you're a vegan and you're, for instance, renting an apartment and driving a car, immediately there's hypocrisy in that. And this is not me calling out the idea of living a compassionate life or propagating that. I think that's fine. I think it's great. I'd encourage that. I think the world needs more compassion. But it's the judgment, right? It's the judgment. I think when you start looking from the perspective of someone who's privileged, then...
Yeah, the judgment. But, I mean, the judgment comes, I think a lot of it comes from a real place. Where people are like, fuck this factory farming shit. Fuck people who eat meat. They get angry. They love animals. But it's just so hilarious when you have a cat.
That's feasting on a multitude of animals that have been...
raised in captivity, all of them. I mean, the way they raise animals, when you're buying cat food, man, you're buying, like, the worst treated animals ever. I've never even heard of like ethically sourced cat food. I'm sure it exists. I'm sure I haven't heard about it, but even ethically sourced cat food, whatever, man, it's murder. If you feed your cats plants, and there are people who do that, they have organ failure. They fucking get heart attacks. They die. They can't live. But there's a lot of people. I found these people because... they're hating on me after my last Comedy Central special where I did this bit about vegans. So whenever people get really mad at me, I like to go to their Twitter page and read what they're into. So I got these fucking people's Twitter page, and I found out that there's a whole vegan cat forum, vegan cat owners, and hashtag cruelty free. And these fuckers, they feed their cats plants. And they don't live long. They die.
I'd like to have a conversation with those cats. I mean, it would be nice if we could bridge that language barrier.
Oh yeah, if you rolled a mouse by one of those cats, they would dive on it like a man in the ocean that just finally got to land.
Yeah, it's a feast.
Yeah, like if you you barely made it to shore. That feeling that you get when you get to land.
I think there's a line. There's a line in all advocacy where how far are you willing to go? And it's a question of how willing are you to sacrifice. I lived in South Korea for a while, and this is a country that was leveled back in the mid 50s. They had to rebuild from essentially nothing. And so I saw pig heads being served up on the side of roads, but I can appreciate that these people had suffered so much so that they had to eat everything that was available to them. And I don't want to sit here and defend that. Okay, so South Koreans are eating dogs and whatnot, and it's symbolic of their history and whatnot. But if you've got nothing left to eat, I'd like to see how quickly your ethics change, right? If you are truly suffering.
And a dog, I love dogs. I have 2 dogs, but let's be honest about what a dog is. A dog is a little captive pet. They're your buddies because you feed them and you take care of them and you have this relationship with them and you have this agreement with them. But if you ran into a wild dog, there was a couple. An elderly couple, I want to say maybe 7 or 8 years ago, that was killed by a pack of wild dogs in Georgia, United States, Atlanta. That area.
Of course.
What the fuck, man? Dogs will fucking kill you if they don't have any food. If you think that they're like Old Yeller or Lassie or what they are is exactly how you treat them from birth. If you get a puppy my dog Johnny, I have a dog named Johnny Cash. He's the sweetest dog of all time. He is so nice. He's just so gentle. He's a Mastiff, and he's just so friendly. He just anybody that comes over, I never worry about him barking at them. Or if he barks, it's like, hey man, come play with me. And when you go up to him, you're like, what's up, dude? And he's always super happy and super sweet. But it's because I've had him from the time he was a baby.
Sure.
And the guy who bred him, he's always been really ethical about how he breeds these dogs, and they're very smart and kind. But it's because of the relationship that I had with him. He knows I'm the daddy. I give him the food. I give him the love. It's all this agreement.
It's part of their evolution. I mean, they're physically cute on account of the fact that we selectively bred them through and through. And they themselves learned that, hey, if I'm really docile and cute, look with these big puppy dog's eyes, I get more food and I get a better place to live and get a warmer shelter. And I'm not likely to wind up in the backyard in winter,
Well, there was actually a Radio Lab podcast that was absolutely fascinating on raising foxes. And they raised foxes. You say foxes, right? It's not like deer. I think so, right?
I'm not going to correct you. I'm agreeing
goofy.
with you.
Seems like fishes.
Foxes. Hey, fishes that's a word. Fishes is an acceptable word, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, but you can use the word fishes.
Really?
I thought there was a large debate about this, and this was figured out back in the mid-'90s. I swear this is part of my recollection.
You might be right. I don't know. But anyway, the Radio Lab about foxes, they selectively bred foxes based on their behavior. Based on whether or not they were aggressive, and the ones that were aggressive they killed, and the ones that reacted a certain way. I don't remember the actual parameters that they set, but ultimately what it was, and if you're into this, Google it, because I don't remember the name of the episode, but it was amazing. Within a few generations, within less than 10 years, they had completely changed what these foxes looked like. Their ears had become droopy. Their jaws had become less pronounced and smaller. Their behavior was markedly different. They literally were almost a different species. And it was within 10 years. Things adapt and change. And that's
the reverse to that is, and I think I heard it on your podcast, is that if you were to release a pig, and then it eventually starts growing hair again and maybe protruding some tusks or something.
Within
I don't
6
know.
weeks.
Yeah.
Within 6 weeks, a fucking month of a pig living in the wild, and all of a sudden their hair starts growing thicker and longer, their nose extends, their tusks grow larger, they become a different thing. They literally start to they start to adapt to the physical shape of a wild pig. Have you ever been around wild pigs? You ever seen wild pigs?
No, I've not.
They're really interesting. First of all, a lot of them are black. They're a dark color. And I'm not even talking about boars. I'm talking.
Okay, right.
Well, we think of boar. A boar is actually the term for a male pig.
Okay.
So when people go to a menu and it says wild boar sausage, is it really? How do you know it's not a wild girl? You know, it might be a sow. The word boar, it's an ignorant terminology. But then there's these Russian boars. There's a different type of boar that lives in other countries. I don't know exactly what the genus is, what the name is. But the crazy thing is they're all interchangeable. They can all breed with each other. They're all the same thing, ultimately. They're
sort of the idea of dogs as well, right?
Sort of, yeah.
Dogs
yeah.
are crossbred all the time to sort of like pull out the advantages that we're looking for when we're breeding them.
Yes.
I know you can make I know they were breeding, and I don't know, I can't remember where now, but they were selectively breeding this hunter of a dog, and they just made this mammoth machine, but also a docile and trusted creature. So I wish I remembered where I read that.
Yeah, they're. I mean, it's amazing that dogs are a lot like people in that way. That there's a lot of different variations of people. You know, I mean, you've got Shaquille O'Neal, and then you've got Natasha Leggero, right? Little tiny Natasha. She's a comedian.
Okay.
She's like 100 pounds. But there's people vary almost as much as dogs do in that sense. You know, we're all sorts of different shapes and looks but my point being, wild animals like a feral cat. I've had feral cats before. I had a feral cat, and he was fucking nuts.
Could you actually get near him?
I could.
Oh, yeah?
Only me. Like, literally only me. No one else could get near him. He would hiss and fucking run away. He would hiss at me half the time. But if I approached him real slow, but once I picked him up, oh my God, he would start purring like crazy.
Wow. The fact alone that you got close enough to be able to pick him up is pretty rare.
Well, what I did was I tamed him it was a weird way. My friend Lainey, her boyfriend and her lived in this apartment, and they had down below, I went to high school with her, and down below their apartment, they found a cat that had given birth to a litter, a wild, and this is like Santa Monica. So they're like, oh my God, what are we going to do? So they decided to capture these cats and try to get them home. So me, like the asshole that I am, I said, all right, I'll take it. So I took one of them. I brought him home, and he was so, I thought, he's a kitten. I'll bring him home, hang out with my cat. Everything will be cool.
Nope.
I had 2 cats at the time, and he was so fucking different than them. He was like, he'd look at you, just hiss and fucking jump up 5-6 feet
Just
in the air.
fundamentally different, right?
Oh my God, he was so scared of everything. He was terrified. Everything was a legitimate life or death struggle. So the internet wasn't around back then, so I was trying to figure out, like, okay, how the fuck do I do this? I got to get to know this little dude.
Food.
So yeah, what I did was I took this room in my house. I put a bed in there. It was like a guest room. So I already had a bed in there. But I decided this was going to be my room now. So I closed myself in there, put a litter box in there, brought some books in, and I hung out with this fucking cat for 2 days.
You're a brave dude, man.
Just me and this cat.
I've seen cats attack humans, and it's violent, man.
Yeah, but he was a kitten. It was a baby.
Okay.
It was a baby. I would have never done this with a full-blown cat. You can't.
Man.
You can't. A full-blown cat, you can't train him.
No, it's over.
He was a little tiny thing. So what I did was I would pet him, and he'd purr like crazy, and then when I put him down, he would hiss at me and run away. Like, he was so fucked up. And I mean, he would jump, he fucked up my curtains, jump through the air and grab the curtains and like, I was like trying to climb them and shit. It was like out of control. I was like, dude, I was just petting you a few seconds ago. But the life or death struggle that these things were involved in, even whatever he got from his mom and his dad, like the genes that were passed down, those are genes of wild animals that were really scared of everything and trying to survive. So he thought he was about to get eaten.
Yeah.
But he became my little buddy.
Yeah.
Took a while.
Was there an element of you that sort of loved the fact that he was badass and scratching your curtains and shit, or were you like, no, hate it?
It was fascinating. It was
cool.
like I'm a big fan of just the idea of wildlife. You know, I think we live in cities, and living in cities and driving cars and sleeping in nice houses and, you know, having a yard, it's probably as close to a lot of people get to nature on a daily basis is they got a tree and some fucking grass in their yard. When you're out in wild and you see wild nature, one of the most fascinating things about hunting is not just the pursuit of an animal that you're going to eat, but it's also spending a lot of time out there in the real wild. Like the real wild where a fucking elk lives, you know, and where 1,000-pound animal lives its life with fucking trees growing out of its head and wanders through the forest and a couple weeks, a month out of the year gets to fuck. And the rest of the time it's just running from danger and eating.
Yeah, fighting.
It's massively interesting.
It doesn't have the slightest clue of the modern world, you know?
Couldn't care less.
Yeah.
All it cares about is doing what it naturally does to stay alive.
And that's really where animals should be.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the premise of what we're sort of dealing with.
But it's just so fascinating when they're there. I encourage everybody. I mean, zoos are bullshit, man. They're bullshit. They give you a stupid idea of what an animal is.
It's just a business. They're there to make your money. They're not reintroducing animals into the wild. There's no program. I mean, I don't want to say there's none. I'd like to hope that there are some.
There are programs where they help animals, and you know what it is? It's like there's some animals that are so far gone and need so much help that it benefits them to have some of them in captivity just so they can keep a breeding population alive.
But ultimately, does that breeding population get reintroduced in the wild in any capacity?
Some of them, in some cases. Okay. They've done it with tigers, I know. They've done it with some animals. It's hard. It's fucking hard. I mean, I'm not slighting in any way people who care about wild animals. I absolutely care about wild animals. I think it's amazing. I mean, people think you don't if you hunt or you eat. And I get it. I understand. I understand where they're coming from. But this is how I try to look at it. Those animals are going to die no matter what. They're all going to die. They're not going to live forever. I'm not talking about wiping out populations with hunting. I'm not doing that, and I don't think any hunters are trying to do that. In fact, what hunters are trying to do, and what they have done, there's more deer in North America today than there were when Columbus landed. And the reason is a bunch of things, but a big part of it is wildlife management. The wildlife agencies, like the Department of Fish and Wildlife in America, Department of Fish and Game, they're very careful about how many deer they allow people to take, and there's consequences for poaching, like stiff consequences. They put you in jail, and because of these rules and enforcing these ethics, they've allowed these animals to grow in massive numbers. And then, of course, there's also agriculture. Agriculture contributes to them a lot. Like the most deer population, or the biggest deer population in America, is usually around people. It's usually on people and farms. Like some of the biggest deer in the world, like Iowa and Kansas, they're known for like the biggest deer in at least North America. Canada is actually known for the biggest ones, but that has to do with cold temperatures creating larger bodied animals because they have to generate more heat to stay alive. But my point is, I'm not a hater of animals just because I kill them and eat them. In fact, I love them. I really do. I get it. I know it sounds contradictory, but what you're doing when you're eating an animal is almost like a sacred thing. When you hunt an animal and you kill and you eat it, it sounds like such hippie horseshit or some pseudo-spiritual horseshit, but it is kind of sacred. There's something that happens when I cook a steak of an elk that I ate and I grill that thing and I eat it. There's a connection that I have to that meat that's it's crazy.
You've earned it on different levels, right? You've earned it.
I don't know if the word "earned it" is the correct word.
You had to work for it.
I'm connected to it.
Sure.
I'm connected to that animal. I'm connected to where this meat comes from. I know that animal ate from the grass, in the forest, and then I killed it, and now I'm eating it, and it's just like this weird, crazy cycle. But
I grew up on moose meat. My dad was a hunter, avid hunter. He went out there. I mean, I saw a photo recently of a...
Get up on that microphone, my friend.
Sorry.
Or pull it towards you. You can pull it towards you.
My bad. I saw a photo recently of my dad back, it has to be in the 80s, and he took down a bull moose. I mean, this was a massive animal. The best of my recollection was just eating that animal. So, I mean, even the fact alone that I'm a meat eater, and, people... Rarely now. Back in 2012, this is a different story, but there's been largely a paradigm shift in how we view animals, especially captive animals. But I was called out quite a bit for being a hypocrite. Oh, you eat meat? Oh, you got leather shoes, and you can't. As if my message is worth nothing. It's like, well, you're not paying attention to the core of my message. Like, stop attacking the messenger. And that's the sort of defense I have against people who like to call hypocrisy in everything.
Do you eat fast food, and do you eat like store-bought food? Yeah,
at my weakest moments, and I'm admittedly a weak man. I tried not to, and last time I was on the show, I'd stressed that I tried to get away from pork, and still I tried to make as ethical a decision as possible, but not at 3 a.m. It happens. It was just like last night. We're driving around, we're cruising around. We needed to eat, and we found our food, and we gave them that paper money, and I slept better. So.
Yeah. It's tricky, right? Tricky trying to stay alive.
And the last time I was on the show, I'd actually mentioned that I had a hard time getting off cheese. And it's interesting because recently I read a study that cheese may very well react to, or your mind may actually react to cheese similarly to crack.
Really?
Yeah. I wish I could quote it better. Again, I'm not a scientist, but I did read this article, and it said that the more processed that a food is, it creates some type of fat that your brain itself becomes addicted to. And they actually referenced an addiction to crack and that it was similar.
Look at this. Cheese really is crack. Jamie, you're on the ball. You need a raise. Cheese really is crack. Study reveals cheese is as addictive as drugs. That is fucking insane. Well, you know what? That makes sense. Because I'll tell you what, Anthony Bourdain, that motherfucker loves cheese. And he's had notorious substance abuse problems in the past, but I fucking hung out with him, man. The way he talks about cheese is the way young 22-year-old guys talk about pussy.
Okay, now you know.
It's like it's like, oh my god, stinky cheese, the stinkiest the better. Pull that up so I can understand that, Jamie. Let me pull it up so the text could read. This is fucking nuts. For years, you've been telling your friends, family, coworkers. What is the title of this? It's from the LA Times Food Daily Dish by Jen Harris. And it says, for years, you've been telling your friends, family, coworkers, and anyone who will listen that you're addicted to cheese. It's part of every meal or snack, and you think about it constantly. A few studies suggest that food addiction is a real thing. The study published by the U.S. National Library of Medicine examines why certain foods are more addictive than others. Researchers identified addictive foods from about 500 people who completed in the Yale Food Addiction Scale. Okay. Cheese happens to be especially addictive because of an ingredient called casein. Okay, it's a protein found in all milk products during digestion. Casein, am I saying that right? Casein, C-A-S-E-I-N, releases opiates. Whoa, called casomorphins. Holy shit. Opiates get released when you eat cheese. Really play with the dopamine receptors and trigger that addictive element. Wow, that's amazing.
Well, people are going to start putting some Kraft synthetic cheese in syringes. I don't know.
You know what I've been eating lately? I've been eating raw cheese. I've been getting raw cheese from the Whole Foods. Whole Foods has the raw cheese. It's made with raw milk. It's fucking great, man. It's really good. Raw milk is great, too.
It's the thing I've gotten away from the most. And growing up, I drank a lot of milk. A lot of milk. I would say more than the average person. Now I can't stomach a glass of milk. Yeah, I just can't. I have no urge for it whatsoever. Now I just
So how do you eat cookies?
Okay, there's when the hypocrisy comes in, right? I'm the largest hypocrite. I admit it. Yeah, so you're right. So I guess I do have I do have a dip, of course. I've heard on the podcast before, and I'm going to accept some of the judgment that's going to come from it. But I've made the switch to almond milk, and feel free to rant about how bad almond milk is for the environment, for all the almonds that are being wasted, and the water use and everything else. I mean, there is a perspective that people like to say, oh, almond milk, that's a healthy alternative. But if you look at it from the other side, the environmental impact and everything else, almond milk shit. So,
well, it's not bad. It's just what almond milk. Here's one thing that everybody needs to consider. When you buy almond milk and it tastes good, it's like, oh, this is so sweet. Look at the fucking label, bitches. All right, because guarantee that shit is filled with sugar. Duncan called me up, dude. I've been drinking almond milk. It's amazing. It's so delicious. I go, okay. What kind are you drinking? He tells me the kind. I go, look at the label and look how much sugar is in it. He goes, holy shit. He's like, 18 grams? I'm like, yeah, every glass is 18 fucking grams of sugar, all right? That's a lot of sugar. I think you're not supposed to have, like, if you're trying to be healthy, I don't believe you're supposed to have more than 25 grams of sugar a day. I think there's like a limit where you hit a limit, and if you go over that, you're like, whoa, you're fucking with your body there. And this dude's getting most of that from a glass of supposedly healthy almond milk.
Well, I don't drink a lot of it, admittedly, but
tastes
it's
good.
The alternative. Yeah, I think it does taste good.
It's not bad.
It's got a nutty flavor. It's got a nice texture. What can I say?
It's really bad when you're in a place like California, which is normally experiencing a drought. Today it's pouring like fucking crazy. We're in the middle of El Nino.
Yeah, I
do not know if you know. This is El Nino and its effects. You want to warm the water. You think that there's no consequences to your actions. Wrong. El Nino is here.
It couldn't wait 3 days for me to
no.
you know.
No, it's good. It's good. I like it. I like watching all these fucking dummies who have no idea how to drive when it rains out. That's one of the things I loved about when I lived in Colorado for the brief time when it would snow. It's like, yes. I love a little consequences for living on Earth. And nature is a thing that we avoid in California. We have avoided it. It barely exists. We go to the ocean and we're like, wow, cool, nature. Like, that's the only time, you can go visit it. You can go to the park and visit it. But it doesn't rain. There's no weather. There's no consequences.
I feel like water probably in California is in a way, the glue that's going to keep the ground together, because you guys are in a badass drought. I've seen like these before and after pictures, and I'm like, wow. And I remember when I was repeatedly asking you to come back on the show, I'd be like, I got to get in there before California runs out of water.
We're not out of water. We're right next to the fucking ocean. They just need to figure out how to suck that water out of the ocean and get the salt out of it. Look, if we could put people on the moon, how the hell can we not get salt out of the fucking water? Just stop making smaller phones. Stop adding new TV channels to DirecTV. Figure it out, you fucks. Just get in there and suck that water out, and let's turn this bitch into a rainforest. Start spraying that shit from the sky. All those chemtrail planes and all those wackos are worried about. Let's have those fuckers for real. Just fill them up with water and just dump it on us. Just get those giant planes filled with water and just dump water on everybody.
Surely $1 million idea.
I think it probably costs a little more than that, but
I was thinking of the earnings if you can manage to figure out how to extract that.
Well, they actually have a desalination plant that they are going online with this year, I believe, in San Diego. Is that this year? Do you know that story, Jamie? There's apparently they do have emerging technologies to extract salt from water, and they've used them in the Middle East where they just have ungodly amounts of money. You know, they just have so much money over there because of the oil. That some of these dudes have tried to use that money to create machines that can suck the salt out of the water and figure out some way to filter it.
If Bill Gates can drink water from his own shit, you'd like to think that someone could...
Is that what he's doing?
Well, he did.
Good for him.
He invented a machine that extracted water from human shit, and there he was. Like,
from actual shit or from, like,
I think
sewage?
It was shit. I think it was shit. We'll use the word sewage just for the sake of making a little more broader spectrum of...
Christ.
Yeah.
Well, that's what you do when you have $90 billion.
It's bold.
Everybody's getting Fiji and Evian, and I heard Fiji's not even really from Fiji. Those fucks. I heard that's bullshit. Yeah, I heard Fiji is just some spring water from the middle of nowhere.
That plant opened up December 14th.
Oh, it did open up. Okay, so it went online at the end of 2015. That's interesting.
That's good. Huge developments.
Yeah, that's gonna happen. That's gonna fix the whole fucking problem. We're gonna go, Jesus Christ, why we were right next to so much water. You have to fly over it in a fucking plane, and it takes 16 hours to get to the other side.
And I'm gonna plead ignorant here, but why are we not just showering with salt water, or maybe extinguishing fires with salt water? Why are we not using the salt water in different capacities that we're not, imposing so much?
It's a good question. To process it, the thing about salt water is it does corrode things like really badly. If you're near the ocean, I have a friend who has a beach house. And every time we go to hang out with them at his beach house, like everything's like all fucked up and corroded. Like they're constantly dealing with corrosion because of the salt in the air. It's just a constant moisture and salt together. They just corrode the shit out of things. That's why where I used to live in Boston, the cars are always fucked up. Like old cars, it's hard to find. Like if you want to find like a 1970 Plymouth or something like that, it's hard to find one that's in good shape because they're all rusted out from the salt that they throw on the ground when it snows out, to melt the snow. So
that's why my cars are all fucked up, right?
So the point being, almond milk. The problem with almond milk is it uses a lot of water.
Yeah,
they use a shitload of water.
And a lot of almonds. I guess you're extracting very little of the nutritional value from the almonds per capita, if you will, like versus like this mass amount.
Right, but
grinding it down or whatever.
Fuck almonds. That's what I have to say, dude. Fuck them. Who cares? I'll eat almonds all day and not care about their life. That's the thing about life. We don't really care much about plant life. We want it to be there, but we don't think about it the way we think about animal life. Like we want animal life to be there, but we don't want anybody to kill it. Like plant life, the only time people get bummed out about plants is when someone chops down an ancient redwood or something like that. Like, oh God, how could you?
And again, I've read somewhere where plants can actually hear when they're being eaten, and I've seen some studies, or rather, I read something somewhere again, where a plant has a similar hunting behavior as animals, where the roots will physically chase or find their nutrients. Mm-hmm. So some would argue that that plants are just as conscious, or conceivably conscious, as animals as well.
Well, they're different in the same way that humans are different than dolphins. We were talking about the intelligence level of an orca versus the intelligence level of a person. Like we would like to think that we're smarter than them, but there's no evidence of that. If we lived in the ocean, we would look like fucking idiots. If we were swimming around with them trying to stay alive, they'd be like, look at these dummies with their fingers and their exposed dicks. Their dick's gonna get eaten by crabs. These fucks, they can't even sleep in the water. Like, what are they gonna? They're just gonna die. They would think we were retarded. right? So that's sort of how, you know, when we look at their life and what they're doing, like they're perfectly adapted to their environment. Well, a tree is perfectly adapted to its environment. And there's been a lot of research done on plant intelligence, and there is a lot of evidence to suggest that these aren't inanimate objects like a rock that just happens to get larger every year. No, these are living things. They're living things that do calculations, that somehow or another communicate with each other. They let other plants know when they're being preyed upon. They develop methods in order to discourage predation, and that's where poisonous plants come from. All poisonous plants come from discouraging predation. That's what it's all about.
It's funny because one of the cruelest things I'd ever watched, and maybe it's because I have a vivid imagination, but is if you've ever seen a Venus flytrap, it's like slowly dissolve, its prey. It's like
wild shit.
Pretty evil, yeah.
Well, there's one that eats rats. There's a fucking plant in the Amazon that looks like a giant tulip that eats rats. Wow. Pull that up, Jamie. This rat-eating plant. And it's a plant. It's like it has like a sickly sweet smell to it, apparently. And these animals go in it looking for food, and they go, they just close in on them. And
they don't bite and kill them. They slowly envelop and
just
dissolve
suffocate them. Just smush them. Just trap them, smush them, and then absorb their nutrients. Yep. Break them down to the very molecules and protein and liquids.
I'm going to get 250 people with signs on a plant's doorstep. Protest them.
Well, plants are alive, man. We need to eat living things. Life eats life.
Life feeds on life.
That it just does. And what's going on now with animal rights activism and PETA and the Animal Liberation Organization is people who care. That's what it really is. Whether they're misguided, whether I agree with them, they're people who care. And they're people who feel deeply about these animals. Check this motherfucker out. Watch this shit.
That's hunting behavior, for sure.
Look at this.
That thing may as well be fishing.
What happened? There we go. Here we go. So this thing, it has like this open leaf, and these plants. What are we watching here? This is like a fast speeded up version of it. So what happens is it growing here? Is that what we're watching?
I thought Final Countdown was about to play. I
found another video, and it was way too quick. It was just a mouse falling into a plant, so I didn't want to go with that. And this one was a guy in front of one.
Okay, but this is we're watching the whole fucker grow. This isn't. So this is what happens. This is where it is. It opens up, and it looks like almost like a hamper where you throw your clothes in or something, or a strange green vagina.
And that looks like a snake. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of that in the animal world. This is all just growth, though. We're watching like high-speed growth. We're not going to watch it eat anything, Jamie. We're going to have to find another video. But when these things open up, they open up, and the rats are attracted to the smell, and they climb in that tube. And when they climb in that tube, they wind up dying. Show the one that has a... Here it goes. Eats a frog. Here you go. This is perfect. This is the one.
This is going to close right up on it.
It already did. Jamie, just watch this. Just do it from the beginning. Here it goes. Watch this. He's just hanging out. Like, what's that smell? Let me just chew. Whoop, Jesus. And then it eats him.
It's over.
Yeah, it eats... and this is a new plant. They've only discovered this fucker, I think, like 5 or 6 years ago. And eats frogs, all sorts of things. Look at this. Watch this. Look at this Venus flytrap. Whap! That's a rat, bitch.
That's cold-blooded, man.
That is so fucked up. Play that again. Good God. That fucking frog. Look at. He's like, what's the smell? Sabak. That is so crazy.
So it's one of the, for me anyways, that's one of the toughest things to watch.
Look at that.
I think of the hours that poor animal's going to be just laying there incapacitated until ultimately, if it's suffocated, then it is what it is.
I didn't know a Venus flytrap could do that. I didn't know they ate a frog. Is that a different plant, or is that a Venus flytrap? It looks like it has the fingers. Yeah. It's just, that's what those plants have figured out is their method to get ahead. That's their hustle. Their hustle is they trap things and they suck them into their body and they eat them.
They survive, they evolve, get bigger, get stronger.
Yeah, those are predators, man. These are carnivores. So look at these fucking ants getting killed by this plant. Oh my God. There's so many of them, man. There's so many different weird ones. Look at this. They roll up these ants. Oh, this is so creepy. It looks like a giant green tongue with like weird sort of spikes that grow on it, and the spikes lift up and wrap around the ant or the fly here in this case, and just trap them. And once they have him trapped in there, and he's stuck in the stickiness of the, look at this with these ants, and then it wraps up and rolls him up like a burrito.
Yeah,
it's fucked up, man.
Yeah, nature's a tough place.
Nature doesn't give a fuck. But I think nature is beautiful. I think it's amazing. I think if you really want to see nature, the way to see it is obviously documentaries and DVDs if you want to stay in your home. But to actually see the physical animal, go somewhere. Go somewhere and see them.
Go see them in their natural environment.
Yeah.
That's where you're going to get a real respect for them. Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm taking one of my elk hunting trips this year. I want to take my kids with me. Not when I kill an animal, because I don't want to make any noise. I don't want to have to quiet them down, because it's a very patient thing, and it's something that would be very hard for a 5-year-old to do.
Would you take issue with them seeing the kill itself?
No. They've watched it on TV.
Yeah, sure.
They've seen the meat. They've seen me butcher meat. They haven't seen me kill the whole animal, but they've seen me chop up a giant elk backstrap and turn it into steaks in the middle of the kitchen, just sitting there with a cutting board, slicing it up, and they ask questions.
And there isn't a disconnect between that meat having been a live animal?
No,
they
know.
That understanding?
Well, they've seen me on television kill animals on a TV show.
Okay.
So they know that I do it. They know that I have targets in the yard. I'm always practicing arrows and archery. But what I want to do is not even the hunting aspect of it. I want to take them so they could see the elk. When elk are rutting and they're screaming, it is amazing. It's like you're in Jurassic Park. It's like you're in some Hobbit movie or something. When you're in the hills, like what I want to do is I want to plan a week of hunting, and then I want to pay a guide just to call in the elk so we can just watch them. So I just want the kids to see what it's like when you make this noise. And then you see this fucking thing, looks like a giant forest horse that comes up and wants to fuck. And they're screaming. They have this crazy wail. It's amazing to watch. Outside of hunting, like separate that. Like that's all great and everything, but just being a part of the environment, like stepping on the ground where these things live wild, and all they're worried about is like mountain lions and bears, and that's what they're doing. They're trying to stay alive, they're trying to get laid, and they're existing in this very bizarre world that we rarely get to see.
Yeah, we can't really truly appreciate it because we don't have to worry about it. We don't have to worry about what their concerns are anymore.
Well, even like look at Africa, man. They have these tourism things they do in Africa, but a good percentage of them are in these high fence operations where they've sort of fenced in these animals in these giant contained wildlife sanctuaries. And the animals thrive in there, but how do you see? I mean, the way you see them is you get in a Jeep and you drive around, and even if there's something fucked up about knowing that they can't leave. Even if it's like 10 miles in every direction and there's a fence, and they would never roam 10 miles in the wild. The fact that there's a fence at all, the fact that we've gotten our greasy little hands in their world, it kind of changes it in a way.
Well, it's funny because I actually witnessed a rutting deer, a male, of course, trying to enter the premises of Marineland, and there's a large fence around it. And this thing was so... I mean, a rutting deer is actually a pretty dangerous animal. I mean, their sexual urges are far beyond any type of like, it just trumps any behavior that they would have. So this thing was smashing. It must have been smelling the females inside the park, but it was repeatedly smashing itself against the fence trying to get in to the point where it had ripped half its face off. Its antlers were getting fucked up. So we actually called a hunter who had been in the back, like who had the permission by the owner of Marineland to hunt inside some wild deer. And we went and got him, and he came, put the first bow, went directly through the animal, didn't kill it, got a second bow, and then put the animal down and killed it. And then we ate the sausage some time later, of course.
Yeah, they get crazy. Moose are super aggressive when they get horny.
Yeah.
They're dangerous.
Yeah, I've been in Algonquin Park at times when the moose are rutting, and that is by far the most dangerous animal out there for you. I mean, you don't want to get anywhere near a rutting moose.
They're so big. Have you ever seen one in the wild?
I have, yeah, of course.
God, the first time I saw one in the wild was in the middle of British Columbia, in the forest, and it was like the first one I saw was a female, and we saw him in the distance. And I was like, oh my... It was like that scene in Jurassic Park where Jeff Goldblum lifts his head up out of the Jeep, and it's like, what? Like, you can't believe how big they are. They're like, the males get to 1,800 pounds. 1,800 pounds. Yeah. Like, the biggest elk that I killed was around 1,000 pounds. So imagine something fucking twice the size of that.
You can drive your car under a moose.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. Well, my friend Mike Hawkridge, who runs Big Country Outfitters up there, he got chased by a female moose on a horse. He was on his horse.
Wow.
And the female had the calves with him, which is when they get really fucking dangerous. Yep. And they get aggressive. And the horse was running and the fucking moose was gaining on them. And he was like, holy shit. Yeah. And he realized, like, oh my God, like, this could be it.
It's a good thing the horse kept its cool or kept its footing at least. That'd be a fucked up scene.
Oh, yeah. Well, if the horse slipped and fell.
Or if the horse said, fuck this guy on my back, like, I'm out.
I don't think he could. I mean, he had a saddle and everything like that. Oh. I don't know if the horse is that smart.
Well,
point
life
being,
or death.
I mean, what we're saying is almond milk is bullshit. That's what we're saying.
Yeah, that's the bottom line.
Almond milk sucks. It's all right. So what has changed since the 2 years that you've been here, other than there's a lot of public acknowledgement and understanding now that it wasn't available or it sort of wasn't at the level that it is now. I think people are much more outraged now about SeaWorld and about Marineland and just the idea of captive orcas and dolphins and, in your case, walruses.
Well, so the first thing we did was we managed to ban orca captivity in Ontario. That's done now. So Marineland will never, and mark my word, they will never acquire another killer whale, whether it be wild caught or not. So that was a big win for animal activists, if you will, or anyone for that matter, has any invested interest in the well-being of animals. Just as of January 1st, we're 2016 now, there are standards of care, which is what I actually petitioned the government for back in 2012, because when I came out and sort of revealed Marineland for what it actually is behind the scenes, during that time, there were no standards of care. You could literally have dug a hole in your backyard, filled it with whatever you want, and then, plunked yourself some dolphins in there, and that was fine. There were no standards of care. There was no oversight in any capacity. That's changed, albeit the letter of the regulations that we have now, I would say that few people are really satisfied. There's still lots of work to do with them, but the fact alone that they are now legislated, we'll be able to change some of the parameters. One of the biggest things is that there's in fact water quality parameters. In the last 8 months of my tenure at Marineland, I was witness to some of the more horrific things that caustic water can do to animals. I witnessed dolphins lose their skin. I mean, the skin was flaking off, literally flaking off their skin. And we're not talking about just a regular slough. There was some permanent eye damage that was done. What happened was there was a breakdown in a disinfection unit, a water disinfection unit. We used to use ozone in conjunction with chlorine. Ozone mitigated the use of chlorine, so you didn't have to use so much of it. And when that machine broke down, the resolve was just keep pumping more chlorine. And because we were in the off season, the public wasn't seeing this. Okay. And this is 2012. I had an old shitty BlackBerry, but I was conscious enough of how bad things were that I started snapping photos, taking videos. And, there was a major complacency from management because, hey, shit, we're not opening again for another 8 months or 6 months, whatever it be. I think the issue started in October and they opened in November. And so there were no parameters. There was no oversight. There was nowhere for me to run to find help. Now there is that. So now Marineland has to adhere to new legislation that will require some capital investment from them, which, of course, is something that we like to hear. But there's at least some stuff in place. And most importantly is most recently there's a senator, federal Canadian senator, Liberal senator by the name of Willie Moore is what we're actually the hashtag. We're saying free Willie Moore. It's sort of in the hopes of sort of getting Justin Trudeau's attention. And he's introduced a bill. It's called the Ending of Captivity of Whales and Dolphins Act. It's Bill 203, I believe. And this bill, once it passes the Senate and ultimately passes into law, is going to ban both the import, the breeding of all whales, porpoises, and whales in captivity in Canada, basically putting a shelf life on Marineland in the capacity that they do business now. This is a bill that I'm urging people. Look, if you give a shit about animals in captivity, tweet Justin Trudeau, our recently elected prime minister, and we're looking forward to moving this thing forward. Beyond that, it's always a thing about what I call the paradigm shift. People don't want to visit zoos no more. Attendance at Marineland is annihilated. Now, this doesn't stop him from exacting a gross revenge on me, but nonetheless, we're still afloat. We're still here 3 years later amidst all these bullshit lawsuits, as I stressed before, these slap lawsuits, strategic lawsuits against public participation. When I got sued, well, I had hoped to one day we'd be in court. Here we are, well over 1,000 days later, and I've spent, well, I say I've spent, but we've publicly raised a lot of money. We've spent collectively over the three former animal trainers that are turned whistleblowers. We've collectively spent over $100,000 and not had a single day in court.
So it's all just trying to drain you legally.
Look, Joe, the fact alone that I'm speaking into this microphone is exactly what Marineland doesn't want. I'm dangerous to the anti-captivity, or rather the captivity industry, because I know a lot of things. Of course, SeaWorld was, if you want to use the term, in bed with Marineland. SeaWorld likes to acquire, because in the States you can't acquire wild-caught animals. What SeaWorld would do is they would get the animals that Marineland would import. So Marineland would import wild-caught belugas from Russia, breed them, and because the calves were bred in captivity, they could now be moved to the States. So this was how SeaWorld in the States was trying to continue to acquire these animals. So this is exactly what this bill is sort of trying to stop.
So that's one of the things that SeaWorld was full of shit about, because SeaWorld was trying to say, we haven't done, like, one of their commercials was saying that they haven't
Caught they haven't brought in a whale in 35 years.
Yeah, they haven't captured a whale from the wild in 35 years.
There's a number of examples of that being bullshit. One being a wild-caught orca, or what they deemed rescued orca named Morgan, that was captured off the coast of the Netherlands. It was by itself. It had left its pod, or it had lost contact with its pod, and so it's a dolphinarium called Dolphinarium Harderwijk. They acquired this animal, and then what they did, or they took it and they called it rehabbing, and then they of course deem it non-releasable. They sent it to a place, and it's outlined in Blackfish, in fact, because there's a large the documentary Blackfish. There's a relationship between SeaWorld and a facility called in Tenerife. It's called Loro Parque. So what SeaWorld did was they had that animal, Morgan, the wild orca, transferred to Laurel Park, and now it's actually part and listed as part of its collection. That's a wild-caught animal. So SeaWorld will sit there and tout this idea, we haven't done this in years, and yet they're importing wild-caught animals that have just recently bred the babies from Canada, and then they're basically adding to their stock of animals this other wild-caught animal. So we could talk about the bullshit that SeaWorld spews all day, but the nice thing is most people are now conscious of it. Most people look at it and say, I mean, every time SeaWorld tweets anything, they get a lot of fucking hate because people know now, right?
Yeah.
They know.
They're essentially a slavery organization.
Yeah, I can't disagree.
And saying that we haven't captured a slave in 35 years is still disgusting. The idea that that's okay, that they can just say, we haven't participated in slavery, catching slaves in 35 years. We just keep them here. Locked in a tiny little... Have you ever seen the map? I'm sure you have. Of course. The parking lot in juxtaposition to the actual area where the dolphins get to swim.
The most heartbreaking one is when that pool is right next to the ocean, when you can see it physically right there. There's a lot of facilities where the dolphins are spy hopping and they can see the sea. It's right there. The ocean is right there. It's a question of picking them up and throwing them back in there, right?
Fuck. Why can't they make it so that they can go back and forth? Why can't they make it so that they can have, set up a facility? This is the way you can make it so that these animals can transition back into the wild, and that if they do decide to come and participate in shows, they could do it on their own free will. Have like an open area where it's connected to like a dock, where the pools and the areas where the animals swim, they should be examined by some marine biologist that deem it ethical. This is an enormous place. As long as you don't keep them in here, but they can do their stuff in here and everything will be fine. And have it be actual ocean water. And then have an open portal, so you don't have to worry about them starving to death in the wild. They can always come in and get food anytime they want, and that way you can kind of keep both things happening. Like they develop a relationship with these animals where it's an actual real relationship. It's not captivity. They come because they want to get food, sort of like squirrels at the park or something.
This is exactly what animal rights people, if you will, and scientists these days are advocating for. They want seaside sanctuaries where which these animals remain in human care and are available for people to watch. Of course, you're going to have to keep like stop the breeding. The breeding's got to stop. Ultimately,
Yeah.
you want to phase this out completely. And
Unless
just,
they want to fuck on their own in front of everybody.
well, I'm going to guess that that the scientists are going to want to try to stop that, but. That's what people are advocating for, really, is these seaside sanctuaries. But
Yeah.
SeaWorld keeps saying that, there's so many pathogens in the water and it's going to make these animals susceptible. Again, it's all bullshit.
what does that mean?
Well, it means they think that they're going to become susceptible and be sick, or that the transition itself from captivity into this new environment is going to be too much to stomach. Well, where was that logic when they were plucking them out of the ocean and putting them in these concrete tanks, right?
Well, they're going to have to adapt if they change the laws and they make it so that's just the only acceptable solution. Then they'll adapt. It's the only way.
There was a law introduced a couple of years ago by his name was Assemblyman Richard Bloom, and it was a bill that ultimately was going to retire all the orcas in San Diego to seaside sanctuaries. The issue that was raised is that there are no seaside sanctuaries yet, and so the bill ultimately died.
Well, fucking SeaWorld, use your money, bitch. What? Yeah, you have a giant facility. You obviously made money off of those things. How down are they right now?
SeaWorld?
Yeah.
Well, their net worth, or rather their company valuation when they did their initial public offering was in and around $2 billion. And basically that's down to, at one point it was down to 1.5, so now 1.7. So, animal activism, if you will, has really caused them a lot of harm financially. They've
That's
literally
pretty small,
taken,
though. They're still worth a lot of money.
They're not, well, of course they're still worth a lot of money.
But for a slave organization to be worth over $1 billion, that's kind of fucked. And then you could buy stock in the slave organization.
Yeah.
What the fuck, man?
I watch that stock price daily. I
They're
mean, they're not
fucking
recovering
slaves,
that, right?
man. Have they rebounded? Is that what it's showing?
It's up today.
Depending on where your time, they're up today.
That's because of us.
Yeah. Well, look at yesterday. Look at yesterday.
That's people who don't like me. Fuck Joe Rogan.
Yeah, I'm going to get a lot of that too. Pump your money in the SeaWorld. Yeah, there's an investment.
Yeah, well, it's not going to be around in 20 or 30 years.
No, you're right. It's not. You're right.
It's more, the more we do research into the language of these things too, the more scientists, I mean, they've been trying to, John Lilly was trying to get them to speak human. He was trying to get them to speak human languages, like way back in, I guess it was like the 60s.
Yeah.
And he even set up an experiment where a woman lived in sort of this bizarre home where there was water. She spent most of her time like waist deep in water.
Yeah, when she wasn't jagging off the
dolphin. That was the problem. She jacked off the dolphin because dolphins get horny, and she was like, well, this is a distraction. Let me just jerk them off real quick. And everybody's like, whoa. What the fuck did you just say? And
thankfully, we've come a long way since then, because clearly that was just a question of the animal mimicking. I mean, the idea that this animal is going to adopt the English language over and above.
Yeah.
But to be fair, the mimicry itself was pretty impressive.
Impressive.
And I've worked with dolphins, and I never actually tried to have the dolphin mimic my own sound. But with what I was watching of that I watched the documentary recently as well. It was pretty impressive. It was pretty impressive.
Very.
But the idea that was teaching or trying to bridge the communication was pretty. I mean, that's out there.
Well, it's all Lilly could come up with back then at the time. First of all, he was on acid almost every day. I mean, Lilly was a fucking maniac. He'd take ketamine, and he was the guy that invented the
Float
isolation
tanks,
tank. I mean, which is one of my favorite things in the world.
Yeah, I've yet to do it. I can't wait to, though.
How long are you here for?
I'm here till I leave
We could set it
Friday
up.
morning.
I could set it
Yeah,
up.
hell yeah.
Okay.
I would love that.
We'll set you up with either the Float Lab. There's a new place in Pasadena that just opened up. That's the
Very
largest
interested.
place in the world.
Yeah, very interested.
Yeah, we'll hook it up.
Yeah, fantastic. Appreciate that.
What part of town are you staying in while you're here?
We're going to be in Venice Beach.
Oh, Jesus Christ. That's where the Float Lab is.
Oh, how about that?
Dude, that's perfect. I'll call
Perfect.
that. We're going to call them right after this, and we're going to set it up.
Oh, I'm ecstatic.
Because
Thanks.
Crash is the best.
Yeah, I've heard that.
He's been on the podcast before. He's a fucking maniac. I love him. And he kept the float business alive with innovation back when no one did. I had a guy who was fixing my tank. And, I had an old Samadhi tank, which is one of the original tanks. And it was starting to deteriorate a little bit because I'd had it for a while. And this guy told me, like, there's this crazy guy in Venice that's making these tanks. They're just so much better than anybody else's.
Little pods, is it? Or like full square rooms? I mean,
No, you get into it looks like a small meat locker. That's what it looks like. You open a door and you climb in. He has a bunch of different models. He has some that you gotta gotta kind of bend over when you get in. But mine is like 7 feet tall and like 9 feet long. It's huge.
I've heard you say that you find it like incredibly therapeutic and just clear your mind, take you to places where you can think clearly. I could definitely benefit from some of that.
It's great for that. It's great physically for your body too. And like my back like opens up and relaxes. I feel like I can like pop it just by like stretching my shoulders up. And it just goes pop, 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 because everything's just relaxing. It's a great source of magnesium because there's 1,000 pounds of Epsom salts in the water. My older one was like 800 pounds, but the bigger one requires more. So it's 1,000 pounds of salt. And that Epsom salt, when your body's floating in that, your skin is absorbing the magnesium. Super healthy for you. And you just feel great. You get out of there, you feel great. And if you go in there like I do, you trip your balls off in there. I went on mushrooms on New Year's Eve. Took mushrooms. I was cleaning my office. And I'm like, look what I got here. Do I do this? So I ate the mushrooms. And then I didn't take a big dose, but I took enough where I started to get fucking really weird. I waited about an hour until I couldn't take it anymore. I was like, I can't be around people anymore. I got to get in the tank. And then I got in the tank.
And the tank was good to you?
It was wonderful. It was embracing. Just sent me on a voyage. Just sent me on a voyage through my mind and got me in this very positive groove. It really, like, it was a good trip because it was a New Year's Eve trip. It was like New Year's Eve's bullshit, really, at the end of the day. Who cares? You know, it's just another day, man. Like, what is in your... But rituals, as I'm getting older and more experienced, I used to reject anything that was established because my life wasn't so good when I was growing up, and I thought that everything that everybody wanted and everything that everybody's working for was all bullshit. Degrees are bullshit, and rituals are bullshit, and fuck you, I'm a rebel.
I can appreciate that perspective,
I'm sure
truth
you
be
can.
told.
But as I get older, I recognize the benefit in like a new beginning in your mind. Like, this year, I am going to do this. This year, I'm going to... Like, how many people... It's hard for people to... I actually retweeted something today from Neil Strauss, who's a really brilliant guy. And it's an article that he wrote about strategies and systems that you can set up to make sure you don't fall into the same traps and sabotage yourself.
Same cycles.
Yeah, which a lot of people do. But you don't have to. The idea... There it is right there. Why you need a Ulysses strategy for 2016. People have this thing in their mind that this new day and this new time is going to be the start of their new diet. They're going to quit smoking. They're going to start exercising. They're going to get their life in order. And they go at it with these earnest intentions, but very few continue that process. And the problem being... We're creatures of habit, and we have these comfort zones that we've sort of set up. And when you set up those comfort zones, you set up these established patterns, it's very easy to fall right back into them. It's very easy to be a lazy bitch.
Wasn't it John Lilly that was studying like the different levels of consciousness, and that he himself said that there are these cycles that you have to try to make yourself conscious of and try to break these cycles? And like, I know I myself find myself too often sitting in a bathtub feeling pretty down on things. I'm like, maybe if I'd get out of the fucking bathtub, go for a jog or something, I wouldn't feel like this, right?
It definitely would help. Going for a jog is one of the best pieces of advice anybody could ever give you. If you ever have something that's fucking with you, just go for a run. Get those endorphins flowing, get that blood pumping, and put things into perspective.
Yeah, your mind starts to change immediately. You actually start, the language that your mind beats the shit out of you with changes, and suddenly you start getting resolves and answers to your problems versus like dwelling on them. I've myself personally, I have gone for runs, and I don't run that much, and I ride my bike, like, in the dark, when I'm amidst the darker depths of hell, and every time I come back saying, "Good, thank God you went and did something," right?
Well, I think we associate, as a human being, we associate dilemmas and physical problems, like issues, like bills or lawsuits in your case. All these, we associate those things with a physical thing because our bodies are used to any fear or danger from the time we were monkeys. It's always been a physical danger. There's never been like a social issue until recently. I mean, until the last a few thousand years when human beings started talking to each other, the real problems that we had were they weren't fucking bills.
It's more instinctual almost.
Yeah, it's like there's a physical problem. So when you develop stress and anxiety, you have this physical response to that, like, holy shit, what's going on? And then you don't do anything with that physical response. That physical response never gets fed. You never run, you never exercise, you never exert. And so your body just gets into a deeper and deeper level of funk and stress. And the physical exertion, all that seems like a meathead thing to say, like, yeah, you just gotta go to the fucking gym, pussy. Fucking walk it off! But you really do. You really do. And if you do that, you will feel better. Mm-hmm. Like some of my favorite people are people that do jiu-jitsu, because jiu-jitsu is such a life and death struggle on a regular basis with people you love and care about. It's a bizarre thing. Like, when you roll with people that you love, like you're friends with, you slap hands and they try to fucking kill each other, and you're going to war. I mean, it's exhausting. So when it's over, you're drained. So the bullshit of regular bullshit just seems way less significant. You still have to deal with it. You're still a person. You still live in the real world. Still have taxes. Still have problems.
Still have lawsuits.
Yeah, your situation's very, very extreme.
My situation is extreme. In fact, if you don't mind, I wouldn't mind sort of offering a perspective of just how fucked things are.
Yeah, please do.
So shortly after I was on the podcast, and I don't know if you recall, you probably don't. You see a lot of tweets, but I tweeted you video of the owner of Marineland, who's the man that's suing myself and a number of other people to try to stifle our advocacy and essentially punish us. And the video was of him driving past our home. And, I uploaded it to YouTube and whatnot. And then shortly thereafter, there were more videos. And then neighbors started taking photos when I wasn't home.
So he drives by and just threaten you to make
Slows
you feel
down.
uncomfortable?
Well, I assume it's to intimidate my girlfriend and I. He has a history of doing this. And I want to touch a little bit on that in a moment, but I just want to give my example to begin with.
Do you have this videos on YouTube right now?
Yeah.
Can we see it?
Sure.
What's your channel?
I wouldn't mind showing you a couple of them. Just Google John Holder, JOHNHOLER, and you'll get videos, footage. I mean, there's a pretty elaborate history. We've unearthed a lot about sort of how he operates. I'm getting a little nervous talking about this, Joe, right now, because I know the consequences of which are going to cost a lot of money and cause a lot of anxiety, where I'm going with this story. But
well, when does this fucking lawsuit get resolved? Here's the video. We're going to watch the video real quick. So this is you looking out the curtains?
So I live at the end of a dead-end street, and across from me is the water. It's a beautiful place. I love it. He's trying to take from me my home, essentially. But I saw him come by, and he stopped in front of my house. I armed myself with my old BlackBerry camera. He went down the end of the road, and you see him now coming back. See, he speeds up, and right here you'll see he slows right down. And he just wants to intimidate. Of course, he has no idea that I'm there. Of course, I present myself, and I'm just like, what you want, bruh? And then there he goes.
So he drives off when you come near?
He drives off when
Oh, what a pussy.
Yeah, well, that's the same pussy you like to put a lot of bullets in. He shot those dogs, if you don't recall my telling you. A couple of dogs wandered onto his property. Boom, he filled them with shotgun pellets. Anyways...
So do you know that for sure that that's his truck?
Absolutely. And in fact, we got him in his new vehicle as well, license plate, the whole works. The police, in fact, set up a surveillance camera, 2 of them. They caught him independently, and don't quote me, but I'm going to call it 12 times. The police refused to lay any charges because they said, A, driving past someone's home isn't technically is criminal harassment, despite the fact that we were like, look, the man's suing us. He's dangerous. I mean, I knew the man, at least historically, to have had a shotgun in his vehicle. He's got a lot of reason to not like myself and my girlfriend, who's on any given time alone in my home. So nonetheless, the police wouldn't do anything. We took that information and we went to a justice of the peace to try to lay what's called a private charge. Not a charge, but we just want him a summons to come into the court and explain this behavior. This is normally a 30-day process. Marineland's lawyers managed to get in an appeal to the summons, which is largely unprecedented. I mean, I guess people with money can skirt the law, but nonetheless, it took a year and a half. The judge ultimately decided that this issue shouldn't be decided in the criminal court. In fact, it should be dealt with in the civil matters. So he quashed the summons, so the owner didn't have to come in and explain himself. And now, I'm waiting any given day now, because the lawyers already informed my other lawyers, they're seeking a cost motion where I'm to pay the legal fees, which they're claiming upwards of $100,000, to have had to try to get this summons against him. His stalking leads to my trying to lay a private charge, if you will, or whatever, private summons. He gets it quashed, and now he wants to put me on the hook for his legal fees.
So he's just trying to drain you financially.
It's a war of attrition, and it's like he's just trying to crush anyone that's showing any type of opposition.
Now, I know the last time you were on, you had like a GoFundMe or something like that,
still
and people
do.
contributed. How do we help you? What is that address? And
so recently I had to retain a new lawyer. 2 of my lawyers have left, and these were ultimately the ones that were working really at a cost effectively. They're gone. So I had to retain a new lawyer. I don't ask for a lot of money from people, but I do ask for a lot of people. As long as we've got money and our lawyers can work, this lawsuit has to run its course. And at some point, and the judge has already criticized Marineland for taking as long as they have. Now, Marineland wants to say, well, this is the behavior of the people, of the defendants. The behavior being that we tried to seek some protection from this man that took a year and a half. He's trying. The lawyers are trying to allege that it's our behavior that's delaying this process, and yet here we are, 2 years after I was here, and not a single day later. Of course, significant legal fees. But we recently got a very generous contribution from some animal rights organizations that are running little fundraisers for us. We used to have what you would call a benefactor, which was Sam Simon. He's co-creator for The Simpsons. He was giving us a lot of money. Unfortunately, recently he passed away, so that sort of ended. But largely it's the public support. This is really quite unprecedented to have a litigation funded by crowdfunding.
Yeah,
it's really unheard of. It's
an important one. So what is the address and how do people get? We're going to put the address on YouTube. So if you're listening to this on YouTube, it will be in the description of the podcast. And I'm also going to put it on Twitter. And so we'll have it as available as possible. If we can put it in the iTunes description of the podcast, we'll put it in that too. What is the address and how do people get to it?
It's savesmooshy.com, Smooshy being the walrus that I had the anomalous relationship with. Mm-hmm. So it's SAVESMOOSHI.
Okay.
.com.
Beautiful.
So again, I'm not funding just my own lawsuit. I stuck my neck out and said, I'm going to pay for all these lawsuits. Right, because some years ago, and I'd mentioned before that I won Wipeout Canada. So there was a period where I actually had a good chunk of change in the bank. So when these lawsuits started to fly, I just started cutting checks. Well, that didn't last very long, right? So really, it is the support of the people. But if you don't mind my touching a little more.
So here's the page.
Oh, cool.
So Save Smooshy.
No, that's savesmooshy.org. Go to the .com one. Yeah.
What's the difference?
The difference is that was just a website that I had created for sort of like ongoing fundraising, and
why doesn't it not exist?
No, Save Smooshy. No, put it all together in one word there. Savesmooshy.com.
It did. It didn't work.
No, it should.
That motherfucker closed down your website.
Oh yeah. Oh, he's trying to shut down my Twitter. Never mind.
Is he? Okay, here we go. Savesmooshy.com. What is it? It had needed a www.
I think it maybe did.
Well, it forwards to a GoFundMe. That's probably why it needed a www.
Yeah.
Defend animal abuse whistleblowers.
Yeah.
So right now you've got some donations, and there's a donate button. You can share it on Facebook, and let's fucking pump this up, folks.
Just to stress that's in Canadian currency, not to scare anyone, because a lot of people go over and are just like, "Well, what's this C next to the donation?"
Why don't
button?
you guys just stop using your bullshit money and use ours? Cut it out.
It'd be nice. Yeah, that's for damn sure.
You're connected to us. Let's cut the shit. God damn it. Mexico too. Cut the shit with your pesos.
If I can just touch on a story that I think it's important in the realm of public opinion or rather consciousness to know of, but this isn't the first time that the owner of Marineland has stalked and intimidated people. In fact, some years ago, a woman named Paula Millard was living in a trailer park that the owner of Marineland actually owned, that was across the street from the park, and he had promised them all that he was not going to move them or displace them, and this was going to be their home for a long time. A lot of retirees there. People put some permanent investment in their properties. Well, ultimately, he did elect to kick everyone out. He had the city's support, which is not, again, we're up against a lot of forces, if you will. Well, one woman was having none of that. She was refusing to move, and the owner would repeatedly drive by and intimidate her. And ultimately what she did was she had written on the wall, she had written, "John Holer, may you get exactly what you deserve tenfold." And then she thereafter committed suicide. Yeah.
Ooh.
I think it's important to tell that story. It's because it illuminates sort of
Who he is.
Who he is.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, of
I have
course.
to say that.
Yeah, me too.
Well, we're going to help you, man. We're going to pump this fucker
Joe,
up.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. Like, we're really still in this game because of you. And heartfelt appreciation for having me back on. It's I can't tell you, and the timing is right because we have a bunch of different motion dates coming up. And
Well, I appreciate that, but I also appreciate what you're doing. I think that guys like you are super important for this. You in particular, you're probably one of the most important because this whole thing that we're experiencing right now is essentially our civilization is awakening to the horrors of the past. And we're doing something that's really fucked up and not right. And we've been doing it for a long time, so we think it's okay because we've been doing it for a long time. And this is sort of the same thing that they experienced with slavery. I mean, slavery had existed for a long fucking time, and it took a bunch. I mean, people think like you're exaggerating. This is not slavery. These are animals. No, they're insanely intelligent animals. They're so much different than a fucking puppy. They're so much different than a squirrel. They have a cerebral cortex that's 40% larger than a human being's. We don't know why. We don't know what they're saying. We know they have an insanely complex language, but we don't know what the meaning behind the sounds are. We don't know. We've recognized dialects. They have different dialects in different areas. We know that they speak differently in different parts of the world.
And I can personally offer perspective of having had a really strong relationship with an animal. Like my anomalous relationship with Smooshy the walrus, and I'll just do a quick summary of it, is that she at one point believed that I was her mother. I mean, she still does. It's innate now. She thinks that I'm her mother. I'm tattooed on her brain, right? I've imprinted on her. So I got to appreciate what it was like to raise this animal in that unique opportunity, and in that the language, and I wish John C. Lilly would still be around because I think that he himself would be calling a lot of bullshit on what's going on. He'd say this is a fucking catastrophe that you're what's being imposed on us, the separation and everything else. But I got to learn what it was like to teach an animal to have a sense of humor, for instance. I mean, this walrus has a sense of humor. This walrus knows me intimately, whether I raise my voice or I lower it. She knows me in a sense
like a dog.
Like no, I'm going to say far beyond a dog. I'm going to say far beyond a dog.
Outside?
This is an animal that could appreciate when there was real threat against me. We used to joke around, and the way that we discovered that she was so protective of me, that people would come really close to me. She would beat the snot out of these people. I mean, she'd come in like a fucking 200-pound bowling ball and displace you. But she knew when I was messing with someone or when someone had grabbed me and it appeared to be a little more violent. Her reaction in itself.
Did someone grab you in a violent way?
The owner's son, in fact, and the owner's son came over one time. He just didn't believe what was going on. And he grabbed me, and he didn't grab me in a smooth and fun way. He grabbed me and shook me. Smooshy never forgot his face. There was a gate between us, so she smashed up against those bars really aggressively, harping on him, yelling, everything else. And even in the weeks and months to come, every time he'd come any even remotely close to me or in the room, she was ready to pounce. It was amazing.
How fast does a walrus pounce? Can you call it pouncing?
I wouldn't call it pouncing.
They kind of waddle, right?
They're pretty fast. They're a heavy animal. Actually, I can say that and not just myself, and other former trainers have actually rescued the owner of Marineland from walruses that were about to attack him. There's a video on YouTube which is actually hilarious, where he's out on stage, obviously yelling at a trainer to bring out more animals, everything, and the walrus breaks from him and starts going towards the owner, and he turns around and starts booking, and the walrus stops, and he turns around, he grabs his water, and he throws the water, and then the walrus goes and he sort of tucks away behind this sort of safety door, and I'm just like,
what a cunt.
I couldn't wait for him to get knocked down, man. It didn't happen, whatever. Oof. But there was a number of examples of that. Actually, there's another video, if you don't mind. Look up, if you Google John Holler again, you can get to a place where he's actually confronting an activist who's just there offering on public property, which has now since been leased to Marineland by the city. He's handing leaflets with information. Well, they have a conflict, like they have sort of a coming together, and John Holler, in plain English, threatens to stab him and bury him. And of course, the activist, who's Mike Garrett, he's a fantastic guy, was I'm assuming he tried to keep some sense and keep things as light as possible, but John just has a conniption. He's yelling his arms and up. I mean, John's a little guy, right? He's got what I call the little big man, where he's just. But anyways,
and
he
this
goes
is
off.
all because the guy is protesting against.
Well, we use the word
Marineland?
protesting, but more than anything, he's handing information. He's handing a history of Marineland, but it happens to be at the end of the park on public property. But nonetheless, the city obliged and released the land to them. I mean, It is what it is. Marineland's operated for 53 years above the law. There was no laws. There was nothing. Now there are some, thankfully, and things are turning slowly. But if you could find that video, if not, that's all right. Joe, while we're just here, I'd like to show you this. Oh yeah, let's take a look. So here he's like, oh look, we're hugging, and then here.
That little guy's the owner?
That little guy's the owner, and that's his hired goon on the right there.
All it is information, that's all. All it is information, sir. You want
Public property.
All right, have a nice day. See, John, all we're doing is asking. People don't have to take it.
We don't take it. You're not but
A whale.
Idiot.
A whale.
An idiot.
It's called me a whale earlier. Let's stick with the program.
You're an idiot.
I can see John getting a little furious here.
Here.
Thank God John doesn't have a knife, or else he'd bury me right here, as he said.
When did he say that, though?
Oh, he said it earlier in the video.
Oh, let me hear the beginning where he said he'd bury him.
This is the closest I've ever been
Right
to
here.
evil in my life. Like, literally.
Come on, he's just doing his job,
You're
man.
lucky you don't have a knife. I'm lucky you don't have a knife. So you would stab me if you had a knife. Wow. Oh, you'd kill me right here. You would bury me right here. You wouldn't even bother to put me in the mass graves. Come on up, folks. It's just information. That's all it is. Just information. John doesn't want to stab me and bury me here. Just take the leaflet.
He's a great guy. Mike's a great guy. I'm trying to support him as well. He's being sued, of course. He's actually having his wages garnished because Marineland, what they do is they use these lawsuits and then they propose all these different motions. So it's like sort of a function inside the lawsuit. Well, what happens during these motions is it can go either way, right? A lawyer can win a motion against another lawyer, whether it be a bullshit lawsuit or not. But what happens is in that process, there becomes a cost award. So unfortunately for Mike, he got a cost award against him, and he couldn't afford whatever the price was. Of course, Marineland will say an inflated price. They say, well, this cost us $25,000 to have to bring him in here. And so the judge awarded $10,000 or so. Mike's having his wages garnished now. This is not a man who broke the law. This is a man who opposed the policies and the practices of Marineland.
And this is because of this right here?
Because of that right there.
So he's having his wages garnished to the tune of how much?
I think he said 30% a month.
For how long?
Or
How much
30%
does he
per
owe?
paycheck. He still owes quite a bit of money.
How much does he owe?
I think he owes in the range of $6,000 or $7,000 at this point. And he just lost his lawyer. We actually had similar lawyers. He's looking for a lawyer. So this is a public plea. If there are any lawyers in Canada that are looking to make a name for themselves and help ourselves or Mike Garrett, like, yes, please get involved.
And if you do help, I'll tweet it out. If you do help, I'll put it up online and I'll let people know that you're doing a good thing.
Joe, while you're here, I just want you to take a look at this print we've had made. This is from just an absolute sick graffiti artist named Ewok
And it
out
says,
of Brooklyn.
Save Smooshy,
Save Smooshy.
fuck Marineland. Is that T-shirt?
This is this T-shirt that I'm
Give
giving
it
to
me,
you.
so I'll hold it up.
Yeah, this is courtesy of Lofty Towers. This is a place in Niagara Falls that generously printed it for us. And then, of course, Ewok 1. You got to see this guy's work. It's fantastic. And it's basically, if you look at it, you've got the walrus. You've got the Walrus Smooshy, who's basically giving the finger to what appears to be an old man, who's with a shirt that says "Bury me with my money," who's got some shackles around it, and it says. It sort of looks like it says "fuck Marineland" on the bottom. I don't know if it actually does, but
So that's the old dude, supposedly.
I don't know. I have no idea. It
Doesn't look like him, right?
Good.
Totally not him.
No, can't possibly be him.
Definitely not slave.
But there's a nice shirt for you to wear when you're doing some
Yeah.
gardening or raising your chickens in the back
dude.
there.
I'll use that for sure.
It's much
Fuck,
appreciated.
man. I hate hearing stories like that. I hate hearing what's ultimately human failure. That's like a civilization failure, a societal, cultural failure. This old creepy fuck that's getting away with. I mean, you could just tell in that video he's disgusting. This whole thing is disgusting. This guy wants to continue his slave business, and he's out there himself getting his own fucking hands dirty.
He's worth more money than I can even conceive, and yet all he wants is the power.
Well, he's so old too. Like, if I was worth that much money, does he have a wife?
He has a wonderful wife, in fact. Yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah, she's a very nice.
I was gonna say
person.
if I didn't, Costa Rica.
Yeah, exactly,
It would just
right?
be all about hookers and coke until the heart stops.
He likes to hunt. You'd think he'd just be out hunting steady. Like, just go do the thing that you like the most. But what he likes the most, what appears to be, is to be a tyrant. I watched that episode of you and Lance Armstrong, and I thought it was really great. It really humanized the situation he was in. But the thing that he expressed the most, the regret, was when he ultimately was I forget the word he used, but like throwing all these lawsuits against people.
he fucked up. that was a fuck up.
But that was
if
some
he
great
hadn't
regret
done
that he
that,
expressed.
I would be 100% in support of him. That's because he was, it's like, have you ever seen the Bill Burr bit where he's on Conan, where he talked about it? It's hilarious.
I haven't, but I'm learning about Bill Burr now, actually, and I find his comedy amazing. It's
one
great.
of the best
Yeah.
ever.
That
ever.
new show that he's got, F is for Family.
It's so
great.
good.
I watched an episode the other night.
It's really good. It's
Yeah.
on Netflix, folks, if you want to watch it. It's an animated series called F is for Family, and he's just a great guy. He's the real deal. Bill Burr is the real deal. He's just one of the best guys ever. And he had this amazing bit about Lance Armstrong being that, like, basically his words were, our psychopath beat your psychopath. Like, the whole fucking sport's on steroids. They're all on drugs, and it's true.
He became the face, unfortunately. He was pegged for being the guy, and I mean, he had all the accolades. He had the image, so and which also means he had the most to lose. But the thing that he expressed most was he regretted,
He
ruining
fucked
people's
up.
lives.
I mean, he was trying to keep this whole thing going. This guy, what he's doing is just normal. It's what people do. When people have established power, they try to protect it. He recognizes all the benefits that he's had for that power, and he doesn't want to step down and relinquish it. And also, if he did, he would have to somehow or another admit that what he was doing is wrong. And I assume that Marineland is still making money.
It still makes some money, a little bit. I
Is
think
it
the
down?
attendance is down significantly, yeah.
Good.
And funny because tourism is up in Niagara Falls. But I think if you guys really want to get a good perspective, there was a podcast that I was recently on called Canadaland, and it's a big podcast. It's hosted by an investigative journalist, Jesse Brown, and he's very meticulous and he's very thorough in his work. And he's detailed this exchange between he and Marineland's marketing. No one put a name on it. It's got to be Marineland's lawyers. I don't know, but nonetheless. If you want to see how they operate and how far they're willing to go to suppress what I say and the information that we provide, do go to the Canadaland podcast and check it out. They've threatened to sue him. They've vowed to sue to what they call judgment, and that's a quote. But that's just the way they operate. You yourself, Joe, and I hate to say it, but it would be a dream if they threatened to sue you. It's not going to happen, but...
Why would they sue me? First of all, I'm a fucking American. You can't sue me with your goofy kangaroo court.
He's
I'll
suing
tell you
Americans.
to suck my dick.
He's suing Americans right now.
I'm trying to threaten him. Look at that. And I'll drive by his house, that fuck. How about that? I'll just say nice things to him. I won't even threaten him.
Yeah, that Canadaland podcast
Nice
really
guy.
details it all. It was really well done.
I just think the whole thing, it's eventually, when you look at it historically, I think my friend Amber Lyon had a great quote when she was talking about when she used to work for CNN. I love this quote. It's being on the wrong side of history.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what this guy is. He's on the wrong side of history.
Yeah.
Like, when it all boils down, you're going to look like an ugly monster.
Yeah, I don't know what type of legacy he's trying to protect at this point. And the funny thing is, all he's doing is making lawyers rich. It's not making me broke. It's not working. I mean, to a certain extent, it is.
He's doing what old rich fucks do. They sue you. I mean, that's common practice. That's their avenue of getting back at you for talking. He exists in a different world. He is an old man, and he's born in a world where there was no internet, and he's experiencing the ramifications of this time that we're in, and also the new information that exists now, where we understand that these practices that they've been engaging in for decades are cruel and inhumane and disgusting. They're disgusting. There's no other way to say it.
Yeah.
Marine captivity of mammals like that is fucking disgusting.
Yeah, indeed.
Where is it going to go, man? Like, how long can this guy keep dragging you around the courts?
Well, unfortunately, there was some changes to the Law Society's laws, and where it used to be, I believe, 3 years of inactivity in a lawsuit, you can file a motion to have it thrown out. It's been extended as of, I think it was March of last year, to 5 years. So we got a lot of things going against us.
So you have 2 more years of inactivity before they could sue you.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but this is my understanding of what was an opportunity before that is no longer there.
Ugh.
But the idea is, at some point, he himself has to play by the rules of the courts. He's going to have to be examined. He's the one that's got the information that we want. We want to go get that information. This is information that Marineland is steadfast right now in isolating, or rather insulating, any type of witnesses. I mean, he himself is a witness to all the things that he's alleging against us. He should be the one that is responding to the lawsuit. Instead, they give us this glorified janitor. Well, what the fuck does this janitor have to do with our lawsuit? We want to look at your financial files. You're claiming financial losses in the region of
What's the
1.
janitor? What are you talking about?
So what Marineland does, and this shouldn't surprise anyone, is rather than be like, okay, look, I'm suing you, so you can take a look at my files. I'm going to present to you the net losses, financial losses of that I'm claiming, and then you're going to have to defend against this information. Well, instead, they gave me this janitor. Well, what the hell's that got to do with anything? We don't want to.
They gave you a janitor for what? Like
to look through he's going to give us the files apparently that we're looking that is going to give context to the lawsuit. It's nonsense, Joe. It's just another means that I have to fight and spend a lot of money to try to get to the root of it all, which is the legitimacy of the lawsuit, which there is none. I'm being sued for plotting to steal a walrus.
That's what it's all about?
My lawsuit,
plotting to steal Smooshy?
My lawsuit is plotting to steal Smooshy. My girlfriend's lawsuit is defamation in the sense that she expressed concern for the lone remaining killer whale Kiska, which was bleeding profusely from her tail, and her talk with the Toronto Sun, or rather the Toronto Star, which is the newspaper that revealed all the that did the investigation of Marineland. So she's being sued, and they had a video, and in the video you see the killer whale bleeding like crazy. I don't know how you can call that defamation. And then there's another lawsuit called that's going against Jim Hammond. He's a former land animal care supervisor, and he's the one that witnessed John Holler shoot the dogs on his property for no reason. I mean, that can't be defended. It's indefensible. These were golden labs. These are puppy dogs. They're not coyotes, and these were his neighbors. And the neighbors were afraid to press charges because they thought that John would sue them. They probably thought right. I mean, the police themselves said to me, "We can't lay this charge on him because he's going to lawyer us. He's going to lawyer up."
Oh God.
Yeah, it's really a stonewall they're putting up.
So that's his just strategy. He just sues.
It's a war of attrition.
But I don't understand I don't understand how the courts are allowing him to sue for this. This doesn't make any sense.
Because we've gotten nowhere in terms of trying to prove the legitimacy of it. It's just the process itself, in and of itself, is punishing to people like me. So his idea is not let's go to court. It's let's put him through the ringer so that he goes broke. And ultimately, the only way I can get out of this lawsuit is if I sign something, say I'm not going to talk anymore. Well, fuck that. I'm not going to not talk. I'm going to continue to talk. I'm going to continue to get my ass on these podcasts and spread my word and get a louder and louder voice. I mean, that's my resolve.
So you think ultimately this has to somehow or another come to a trial?
It absolutely has to.
Or he has to drop the charges. And then you would have to sue him.
I am suing him. He's yet to respond to it. This is something, again, that normally lawsuits have 30 days. This has been 3 years and they've not responded.
Well, how does that work? How come you have to respond but he doesn't have to respond?
What they've done is essentially, or what I believe they've done, allegedly, is they've hijacked the process, is what it's called, where you just inundate the courts with a bunch of different things, and every time a court date seems to come up, it gets adjourned. Or we do, in fact, I mean, recently I'd lost my lawyer. He's moved away, so I was having to find another one. Marineland pounced, immediately called for a motion. All of a sudden, okay, so now I'm defending, or now rather it happened to my girlfriend that she had to go in, but my court date ultimately did get adjourned because my girlfriend was successful in actually having the motion adjourned, despite the fact that they're continuing with these motions. It's hard to explain. I'm not a lawyer. I can't really get down to the nitty gritty of it all. I can only just offer you the perspective of someone who's being punished unjustly with a process that just is inherently abusive. It's an abusive process.
It's really discouraging.
Welcome to my world, man. And I'm still trying to put food on the table. I mean, I've still got a life to try to live. I mean, here I was 35 when this thing happened. I'm 38 years old. So I get to look forward to resetting my life and try to pursue some personal endeavors at 45? Is that when? Is that when I finally get to be freed of this thing? I mean, I'm an activist. Yes, okay, call me an activist. But, when this is all said and done, I'm also a human being that wants to do stuff in life.
What are you doing for work these days?
I do some, actually, recently I was a pallbearer for hire. That was interesting. A lot of people don't have families, so I'd get a call and they'd say, you want to come help carry this casket? Okay, absolutely.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, fuck.
Carrying dead bodies.
Welcome to that'd be great for the book. That's another thing that's a problem.
Writing a book?
Well, absolutely, yeah.
That's a problem?
Why is it a problem? Because getting a publisher is tough right now. I mean, if you're going to publish my words, you're going to be sued. I assume there was a documentary that was in its initial stages. It is gone. There was a big story in Outside Magazine that was coming out. This was the feature piece. It got quashed. A lot of people show fear when it comes to lawsuits. Thankfully, Ontario passed what's called anti-SLAPP legislation. We got the thing, and I'd mentioned this in the earlier podcast. We were getting anti-SLAPP legislation. The problem is, and there's a major conflict of interest, is that Ontario's premier, she herself, had a SLAPP suit against one of the MPPs during the elections. She launched a lawsuit so that they couldn't talk about this controversial issue, which was this gas plant scandal. And so what she did when she reintroduced the bill is that she took out the retro clause. This was our home run, dude. We were out. Not only that, Marineland was going to be up against some major punitive damages, like as per the letter of the law. They took out it being retro. It's no longer retroactive. It doesn't apply to us. It's insanity,
Just because
man.
this one woman?
Well, she's the premier of Ontario.
Fuck her.
I can't say that. That's not going to help me.
What's her name?
I appreciate you did. Kathleen Wynne.
Fuck you, Kathleen. How dare you?
Hell yeah, man.
How
I didn't
dare
say that.
you?
Remember, I didn't say that.
How dare you?
Felt it, but I didn't say it.
God damn it.
Oh, it's cruel, man. What I've come to learn in involving yourself in any type of government process and everything else is that it's thankless work. I mean, it's fucking brutal. And it rarely to ever actually goes your way. I swear to you, I've had an arrow striking the bullseye, and every time it just glances. Every fucking time. But I'm not discouraged. Look, I'm on this fucking show, man. This is a dream come true. It happened again. I cannot fucking believe it. So good things to come. I just got to keep focused. Good things to come.
It's just so bizarre that no one from the government recognizes what a horrible thing this is, not just in terms of the injustice that's being done, but also in terms of the PR for their legal system.
It is recognized. It's been expressed in at Queen's Park in provincial legislature. These are abusive lawsuits, and like we had an MPP stand up, Sherry DeNovo, and she's just like, "When is this gonna stop?" I mean, she's pounding her fist and everything else.
And what happens?
Well, unfortunately, it was a political issue, and she's not a member of the Liberal Party. She's part of the New Democratic Party, and that's
You guys have a liberal party? It's hilarious.
We have a Liberal Party that's in power on both federal and provincial legislature.
Your king is a liberal, right?
King?
The king? You guys have a king, right?
Justin Trudeau? Yeah.
I like that guy.
Hey, he's the one that's going to legalize marijuana in Canada. We'll
he
see.
seems like a cool guy. I've seen him talk. I'm like, I wish we had a candidate for the United States president like that.
He's the one who we're trying to get attention to see if we can't get support for this bill we're getting to ban the whales in dolphin captivity.
Well, he definitely should be a part of that, and he definitely should step in and do something about what's happening with you. Have you guys tried to contact him about that?
I've not, but this is something that's governed by
Ontario?
Provincial, yeah. So there's nothing he can do about that. But they did.
But he's the king.
He's the king. Yeah, that's right. Heavy is the crown.
Yeah. What the fuck? He can't just step in.
You'd think he'd tap on the shoulder. Now, granted, I remember touring a lot of public figures in and around during my time at Marineland, including Jean Chrétien, who was a former prime minister's son, who still goes there. So there's still some government ties to Marineland. Of course, Marineland.
He still goes there, like he visits.
He brings some people to scuba dive with the beluga whales. People with like disadvantages physically and stuff. It's a great program.
Right.
But that I know of, he was continuing going up until 2012 at least. I don't know that he still goes. I haven't been in the park in that long.
It just seems like Canada has so many great things going for it. And when I hear lawsuits like this and that are so insane, that last for so long, and then that your counter lawsuit doesn't get any traction at all, and that no one's paying attention to it, I just don't understand how they can allow that to happen.
It's a good thing there's a lot of people helping us, right? I mean, because it appears that it's going to be the will of the people versus the will of the government. Yeah.
Fuck, man.
Don't discourage me, man. I know how I'm eye hole deep in shit, man. I know.
Well, it's just it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating as an observer, as an outsider, looking at this and saying, "Man, this is just so strange." It's so strange that in this day and age, this can happen and someone can get away with this.
He hasn't gotten away with it yet. I ain't done.
But he's getting away with what he's doing so far. Where, I mean, literally, the government should shut him the fuck down. They should have stopped this lawsuit. They should have enforced your lawsuit against him. They should arrest him for stalking. The whole deal. It's just, it's all disgusting.
I've become quite jaded, and admittedly, I believed even when we came out that there would be some type of justice. I mean, that's what we were seeking, of course.
Right.
Wasn't doing this for shits and giggles.
Money is draining that justice.
When you speak to power, you can expect some serious consequences. It's as simple as that.
But it's so insane that the charge is attempting to kidnap a walrus.
Correct. And trespassing. And here's the challenge, and I offer this to all your millions of viewers and listeners. You find a single video of the last day, I can't remember shit, I think it was April, I believe it was Oh shit! Why do I not know the date of this? Let's call it October 17th, I believe, 2012. Marineland alleges that I broke into the park with these legions of animal rights activists, which actually did happen. Not I wasn't there. I was on public property. I did not go into the park, but hundreds did actually storm the gates. And what Marineland alleges is that I trespassed in there. And there's tons of videos. I mean, you can get 15 different vantage points. If any single person finds me in that video, I will personally cut you a check for $1.5 million. If that doesn't get you
don't
going,
have $1.5 million. How about you offer
well,
to blow
I don't have $1.5 million.
Offer to blow
Okay, I'll blow you. I'll blow you.
Well, it's not going to happen, right? So
It's not
don't
gonna
worry
happen.
about it.
That's right.
There's no video of it. They're going to Photoshop you in there just for a blowjob. Somebody used that CGI shit they did with Avatar.
I think I can negotiate my way out of it. I'll give him 1.5. I
Just give him a hand job.
Marineland thinks they're
Hand
getting
job and
1.5 out of me.
That's what they want, $1.5 million?
Yeah. Out of the guy who essentially is, but put it this way.
That's what they're trying to sue you for? $1.5 million?
Yeah, that's the damages they're claiming.
What's that in real money?
In terms of?
Like outside of Canada, like America, where it counts.
Oh, let's call it $1 million bones. That's $1 million bones.
Your money's worth more, isn't it, right now?
It's worth significantly less.
Oh,
That's
is
why
it?
I'm drinking all the free beers I can while I'm here.
Well, we'll send you some.
Thanks,
I don't
man.
think it's legal. Can you send beer across the border? Probably not. It's probably drugs. It is a drug, right?
Well, we'll see what Justin Trudeau can do about that.
Man. So, have you gotten any traction on any other shows? Like anybody else reached out to you?
Well, that Canadaland podcast was timely and big, and it was great.
Did they get a lot of downloads? It's
Yeah,
a very
and it's still
popular
going.
podcast.
It only was published 2 weeks ago.
Okay,
So-
and Canadaland is what it's called?
Yeah,
And do you know what episode it is?
it's called
People could
Everyone
find
Loves
it?
Marineland.
Okay, Everyone Loves Marineland.
Yeah,
So
it's
we'll
their
try to
second most recent.
send people to that. What about American podcasts? Have people...
Abby Martin, thankfully, has had me on a number of times. I mean, and through the show, I've received quite a bit of support from like what I would call some real badass, awesome people. So I'm most appreciative. But beyond that, no, there's really quite a bit of fear of my speaking. So there are
mostly in Canada, right? Like
mostly
not
in
fear
Canada.
in
Well,
America.
Outside Magazine, they quashed that story. I mean, this was going to be a big feature.
How did that happen? Do you know? Do you know what the mechanism is?
Yeah. So the writer was staying at our place, and at the time, I believe we had there were people watching us, and I had specifically said, because his rental vehicle was parked across, and here he was sitting on the couch, and we were talking, and I looked, and there was a truck that repeatedly drove by and stopped and went to the other end of the street, turned around, and I said, "Fuck, you're being watched," like, and he's just like, I think at this point he didn't truly appreciate the depths that we were in, and at this point we weren't even sued yet, and sure as shit, Marineland named him by name, the author, and that was it. So he wouldn't. I mean, he tried to get the article to run, but outside ultimately said, like, we're not interested in being sued. That was a different time. There's anti-slap legislation now, so outside, if you're listening, but
Well, why didn't they just shut their fucking mouth until they published it? How did they find out about it?
He was asking current and former employees to see if anyone would speak, and then obviously there was someone I went to.
Okay.
When you worked in an oppressive sort of regime, if you will, you're quick to try to score bonus points. I assume a former trainer or someone probably said, "Hey, this guy's calling around looking for something."
What other businesses that guy have?
They're all in-house businesses, but yeah, he owns a lot of property. He owes no one any money. There's no outside financial interest whatsoever. He is the sole controlling mind.
It seems like a guy like that needs a come to Jesus moment where he just realizes, like, what am I doing? My life is, he's at the later stages of his life and he's living like this, suing people. It's all anger and evil. And
Well, I hate to mention it, but a few years ago, and this was my greatest ally, his son actually passed away. And this was the guy who actually allowed me into the park when unbeknownst to me, I was no longer allowed there. He let me in, and that's when I saw, Smooshy in the condition that she was in, that ultimately inspired me to sort of speak out and not be anonymous. And he shortly thereafter actually passed away, and he was my age.
how did he die?
I'm afraid to say, but I'll say that I believe it was avoidable. I think that when you live under an oppressive and difficult situation, especially with regards to your relationship with your father, that maybe you resort to methods to ease that pain, maybe to sort of I don't know, maybe forget your woes.
So something drug related.
I don't know.
You don't know. Okay, I understand what you're doing.
Yeah, cheers.
It's cool.
Thanks.
So, what's the next step? Like, what
Well, the
what
next-
happens now, other than
the
us
next step
tell
would-
everybody to go to savesmooshy.com Throw some money around.
The next step would be nice if maybe PETA would step up. I mean, it's in terms of hypocrisy. PETA likes to use our headlines and to raise money for themselves on their websites and they'll donate here. Look, how do you save Marineland's animals? Donate here. We've not received an iota of help. In fact, I asked them, look, can I just get a tweet out of you guys? And they said, as a nonprofit, we've learned that doesn't help. And
wait a minute, hold on. So they say donate here to them to help you, and the money goes to them?
To help them. They don't
ever say to help you.
To help you. It's just that they use the stories. They'll be like, mass graves found at Marineland. And then, there's the article. And it's horrifying. Phil Demers says,
donate here and then donate to PETA.
Donate, here's the donate to PETA.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's tough, man.
Well, they're too busy killing cats and dogs.
And tweeting you on Orca Day.
Yeah.
I mean, tweeting Joe Rogan, the guy who's throwing arrows into every animal that, and they're asking you for retweets. I actually thought that was brilliant. I'm like, wow, PETA's like really... They're sort of showing their true colors. But.
Well, they know that I do love orcas.
Yeah,
I
fair
also
enough.
just love to eat deer.
Right. Fair enough.
I don't throw arrows into everything, man.
No,
only
that's fair.
Edible,
That's fair.
Only
that's
edible stuff. But I mean, they've retweeted things that I've posted up about orcas and particularly about my loathing of orca captivity. And I think there's new laws that have been passed in California, right?
So recently, SeaWorld, so what happened was SeaWorld, they had to ask permission from the California Coastal Commission for a $100 million expansion of their pools, of the existing pools. What they've said is we're going to eliminate the show, which is not true. It's not true in any capacity. What they're going to do is create a new environment, a larger one, which is good. But they're still going to have a presentation of sorts that's going to rely on animals performing more natural behaviors, but still there's going to be food deprivation in the train. There's going to be, it's the same thing. It's just, it's presented differently. So what the California Coastal Commission said was, look, we'll grant you permission to make this large expanse, but you can't breed orcas anymore. And so what SeaWorld basically said was, okay, well, A, they've considered not doing it altogether. B, now they're suing the California Coastal Commission, alleging that they've overstepped their boundaries. But what's really...
So they want to keep breeding them.
Exactly. Doesn't that tell you everything? All of a sudden, they're not going to create this large habitat for the existing animals that they supposedly care so much for. But if there's that clause for breeding, no, they're not going to do it. I mean, that says it all. Really, it does.
Wow. So they're not going to create the new, larger environment just because they're not allowed to breed them.
Because they've got this clause. Well, they're going to sue, I assume, to try to have that overturned, which I hope the California Coastal Commission would reconsider their approval of.
They should step it up and just make the whole fucking thing illegal. Jerry Brown. Come on, Jerry Brown. You're a hippie.
There is a recently tabled bill, which is a federal ban across the states for orca captivity.
They should. They should. It's 100%. I mean... I wish there was a way that they could hook up a fucking machine to a pond or a pool where an orca is and have that orca communicate and have it broken down to English. We have Google Translate for Russian and
Orca
Spanish.
Translate.
How about an Orca Translate? If they figured out a way to scientifically, without debate, analyze the sounds and break them down into an English language that we could read and understand.
Yeah, people would be mortified.
Oh my God! What if orcas just start saying really racist shit? They just hate Chinese people.
Well, they have reason to. Well, maybe not the orcas, but dolphins and whatnot have reason to hate the people of Taiji, Japan, who are just repeatedly hacking them up. And then, of course, in the Faroe Islands, and I watched the video of or documentary on what's called the Grind, is when they do these drive fisheries. Is what they do. They drive the animals. They're sonic animals, so you pound the bottom of the ocean floor or these metal rods into other steel structures, and then it herds the animals onto the land. Well, what they do here in the Faroe Islands is they grab these hooks and they embed it in the fucking blowhole of the pilot whales, for instance, and there's a long rope, and then the people drag these things up, and then they go up and then hack their throat, right? They want to call it subsistence hunting, but it's hard to call that subsistence hunting. Maybe historically it has been, but it's pretty brutal.
So they eat the pilot whales? Is that what it is?
They eat the pilot whales, yeah. But I'm of the opinion that it's a cultural thing, and they're on the wrong side of history now. You've done it. It's done. It's documented. You got the photos, if you will. The history's there. Let it be there. Keep it in the history books.
Well, it's one of those things where if you look at the environments where they eat whales, they're people starving. It's desperation.
In those places, I'm not going to argue.
Yeah.
Subsistence eating and hunting is important. I don't doubt that. But in the Faroe Islands, across from where they're doing the grind, is a vast, beautiful cityscape. Like, you can't tell me you can't just go grab a couple eggs and make yourself an omelet. I don't know.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. The dolphin thing in the movie The Cove, which is what you talked about Japan, they were killing them because they were eating the tuna, right? Isn't that the idea behind it?
They will use anything to defend the culture of killing these dolphins, but really it's fueled by the captivity industry. Those dolphins are invaluable, and places like, and I'm not going to say SeaWorld now because it's been a number of years, but they have historically acquired animals from these drive fisheries, but they buy these animals, and these hunters are driving around in fucking Porsches and shit. It's not because they're chopping the dolphins up for meat. That's not the thriving industry. It's the captivity industry. They're selling them.
When they're killing all those, why would they kill them if they could sell them?
Well, because they're not aesthetically pleasing. They take so many of the animals. They take the more aesthetically pleasing ones. They sell them for the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then they chop up the dolphins, and then they whatever. I guess they give them to supermarkets and whatnot. But
they give them to supermarkets.
Well,
People
they are
eat
sold.
dolphins.
Yeah. I've never eaten
Japan?
dolphin. I've been in Japan. I never ate dolphins, but
in Japan they eat dolphin.
They have. I think that's something that's going away. I think the new sort of generations of kids are sort
I
of
didn't
appalled
watch
by
The Cove because I didn't want to see it because I've seen enough YouTube videos of it. It's horrific. I can't watch. But
it's murder.
I didn't know that they ate them.
Yeah. Well, and what we're coming to learn is that there's high levels of mercury in the dolphin meat, so it's actually poisoning people. So people are really getting away from that. But more than not, I think it's front to keep the captivity industry going and to keep that money there, because they sell them to places in China, they sell them to places in wherever in Japan itself, and there's a lot of money that's being exchanged between the facilities and the hunters.
So outside of Canada and the United States, there's a bunch of places in the world that still have those sort of marine type shows.
China, especially right now. China is really starting to is like a burgeoning environment for the captivity industry.
So they're ramping it up.
They're plucking elephants out of Thailand and stuff. I mean, wild-born baby elephants. They're stripping them from their mothers, and they're shipping them to these places in China now. These zoos. I mean, this is another thing that has to stop now, right?
China, damn, that dog festival's rough.
Yeah, the
Yulin Dog Festival. I watched that the other day on TV. There was some sort of a special. This woman goes over there. It was interesting though the way the Chinese people looked at it. And it's hard to argue. They're looking at it the same way we look at bacon.
It offers great perspective for the people that are, for instance, saying, I will never fucking eat this dog. Well, guess what? Like, it's not any different. It's no less a conscious being than your pigs, who are arguably significantly more intelligent than dogs, or your cows, or your whatever. I mean, it is what it is. But it does offer a glimpse into the hypocrisy of loving one animal and eating the next. So I appreciate that this thing offers that context.
It's bizarre how we have these ideas, these hierarchies of animals.
Yeah.
Where this one's, it's okay to kill and eat them. This one, it's not.
It seems more novelty based, really.
Yeah,
because you can make a hell of a pet out of a pig, but it's less cute.
Well, there was a guy who had a pig the other day. Where the fuck were we? Somewhere here in California. A guy had a pig on a leash.
Awesome.
Yeah, with a dog. He has a dog and a pig, and he had the pig on a leash. Like, well, okay.
I don't quote me, but the intelligence of a pig is, from what I believe, I remember.
They're very smart.
Like a 10-year-old or something, human. Like
not my kid.
Okay. Because it's so much smarter.
Exactly.
The human, right.
My fucking kid. No, they're supposed to be intelligent. I don't know if they're like a 10-year-old, but they're supposed to be quite intelligent. Yeah. It's hard to quantify. Like octopus.
Of course.
They're just starting to realize how intelligent octopus are.
Of course. Yeah.
I eat the fuck out of some
fish,
octopus.
Tuna.
Yeah. Tuna are intelligent?
Apparently brilliant. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Well, to some, I guess,
not smart enough to stay out of the cans. Cans of tuna. You know what I'm saying?
The ocean's fisheries are decimated. I think we've got basically an expiry date of, I think they said 2040. I watched a documentary called End of the Line recently, and they basically said that 90% of the ocean's fisheries are fucking gone. And tuna especially is really susceptible to extinction.
And it's just because we just overfish.
Overfish, and it's the methods that we do it. You got these trawlers that are setting up nets that are the size of football fields, and they're just grinding the ocean floor, and it's just decimating the ocean.
Yeah, it ruins the beds,
the ecology as a whole.
It fucks up coral reefs, everything. And what could be done about that? I mean, they've got to leave it alone and let these things grow back.
It all comes down to what you can do with your wallet. If you're not spending the money to go to, Nobu and get that piece of tofu, or rather that piece of tofu shit, that piece of tuna, then you assume that in some way, shape, or form that's gonna curb this behavior. But
there's got to be. The problem is also that the ocean is not like if you're in a country and the country establishes like bag limits on animals, they can keep the populations very healthy. You can't really do that with an ocean.
No one's governing the oceans very aggressively.
Well, if they were, this whole thing in China or Japan wouldn't be taking place with the dolphins.
The only people that are doing it is the Sea Shepherd, and unfortunately, Paul Watson is like considered a terrorist in a lot of countries and can't actually set foot on firm land.
Right, in
so
some countries.
It's funny, he's the one that's being like demonized for really trying to save the fucking planet.
Well, one of the things they've done in Japan, where they've sort of skirted around this whale killing thing, is they say that they're doing it for scientific research, but then they take these animals on board and they butcher them and they sell the meat.
Yeah.
But it's so fucked up. All they have to do is like pretend to run a few tests. And they've documented this. Sea Shepherd has done that. They've documented these whalers.
And they're doing it in whale sanctuaries. Right? They're doing it in places where it shouldn't be done, but it's not monitored by anyone except for Sea Shepherd, right? End of the world, brother.
Fuck it. It's not, though.
No,
it's
you're
not,
right. It's
because this is the first time ever where people are widely aware of this kind of activity.
And this is where I credit this show. I'm telling you, I'm sitting here before you as a fan, first and foremost. You've illuminated so many issues and like broadened the spectrum of my consciousness so much. I can tell you, I am in the seat of your millions of listeners. I am that person right now who's saying to himself, damn, I wish I could be on that fucking show. I just happen to do something that, my life circumstances just ultimately led me here, but I am that guy. And I have to extend another, a big thank you for ultimately shaping a paradigm that is shifting so goddamn fast on so many different levels and so many different topics out there. And largely what you did started, 6 years ago, I believe it was, when you started the podcast. You're the guy who did this. So...
well, I couldn't have done it if it wasn't for people like you being on the show. All I'm doing is having conversations with cool people. This whole thing has made itself. It's very bizarre.
I love that my ass is in some way making physical contact with some awesome asses that have sat here, man. We're sharing.
That's an interesting way of looking at it.
I love it. I love him rubbing up against it, going, Neil deGrasse here, right on.
He wasn't in that one.
That
was old seats.
Oh, right.
Oh, yeah,
I should mention, these are pretty comfortable.
These are dope, right?
Yeah, they are.
Thanks to Ergo Depot for providing me with these. These are called Capisco chairs because people constantly ask me on Twitter. They're super comfortable. They're ergonomic chairs.
They move well, too.
Well, they move well, but here's the most important thing. These are the only chairs I have ever sat in that are comfortable, that I can sit for a 3-hour podcast and my back doesn't hurt.
It's got the lumbar support, eh?
Yeah, well, when I leave, it forces you to sit in a way where you're erect, which is how we're supposed to sit. And when I would sit in like a standard office chair, by the end of the day, my back's all fucked up from jiu-jitsu. So like the middle of my back would be hurting like hell. I'd be like, I'd leave podcasts and I'd be all stiff. I leave these I feel right now, like I just sat down. Yeah. Like it doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah, full disclosure, I was moving in my seat because I'm just fidgety guy. Not because I wasn't uncomfortable.
But these ergonomic chairs, man, they are the future. They are the present. They're so much better than a regular office chair. Regular office chairs cause you to sit in sort of a weird way unless you consciously, like, I need to get these fucking things to the UFC because when I sit and watch the UFC for 6 hours, I sit like a hot chick on Instagram. Like when they stick their ass out, that's how I sit. I purposely force myself to sit in this unnatural way. Whereas if I had chairs like this, I would just So Ergo Depot, holla at me. We'll send these bitches over to the UFC. But that's actually like the UFC has they use the chairs that are there at the Mandalay Bay or MGM or whatever. But my point is, these are the shit.
Yeah, they're great.
Anything else before we wrap this thing up?
Everything else. I could talk for hours, man. Wrap it up and let me...
Is there anything else important that we left off the table?
Oh, shit.
'Cause I know you got a whole notebook there, dude. You're like a comedian. You have like notes.
It's my process. Oh, ag gag laws. You're familiar with ag gag laws?
This
is the agriculture laws that...
yes.
Yeah. So
factory farming.
That's a perfect example of sort of what we're going through. This is a microcosm of what we're dealing with. Marineland sort of gets creative in sort of creating their own little law, ag gag sort of procedures with existing laws. But yeah, these ag gag laws are just an absolute... just a fucking horrible thing. I mean, to be able to prosecute and punish people that are trying to expose the truth of farming and agriculture practices, this is absurd. This is fucking crazy, right?
Yeah. Well, what they're doing is if people have a video, like a cell phone video or something like that, and you film pigs in captivity or chickens or anything in agriculture where they have factory farming, you can get sued.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can go to jail.
Yeah.
Like, you can go to jail for exposing something that makes people sick. And a reality of a business. If you're buying something, I feel like if I'm buying a chicken and then I find out, I can no longer be detached from this process because now I know exactly how this chicken lived and I feel horrible about it. I've been educated. And so that company needs to change its practices because I don't want to buy chickens from them anymore. And if some people do, that's fine with them. But to stop people from filming that and showing you, well, you're trying to keep people in the dark.
You're misleading people.
You're hiding facts. You're hiding truth. That's not cool. And
this is exactly what we're dealing with in reality, right? It's just the same fucking thing.
Yeah, it is.
Insane.
It is. It is exactly the same thing. Hiding truth, hiding reality, and trying to keep people from being aware of what's essentially torture. You know, I buy as little meat as possible and no eggs. I don't buy any eggs from anywhere unless I'm in a restaurant or something like that.
You have your own chickens.
I have my own chickens, and I have I have a good feeling when my chickens like me.
Sure.
They come to me. Like I come out to them and I bring food and I'm like, "What's up, kids? Hey, girls!" And I put the plate down. They're not scared of me. They run over and they lay eggs, and I take the eggs. Sometimes they peck at me when I try to steal their eggs, but I reach under them to take them. But they barely. They don't know me that good.
You could take them.
But my point is, it's like I enjoy that relationship, and I know that not everybody can have that sort of a relationship, but that is what you want if you want eggs. Like PETA has these really ridiculous campaigns against chickens and against eggs, where they call it a chicken period, and they have a frying pan on their website with a pair of panties that has like a fucking bloody spot on the panties, and you're frying the period. It's so bizarre. Have you ever seen it, Jamie? Pull it up.
If periods tasted as good as eggs, I don't think there'd be an issue, but...
periods don't taste that bad. Ew, Jesus, come on. How dare you? It tastes like a penny. What's the problem? Ew, how dare you keep going? The problem is captivity. It's not eggs. Joel Salatin, who is a really fascinating guy, I had him on my podcast, and he's an advocate of what you would call natural farming. When he has pigs, what he does is he puts this enormous electrical fence up, and the pigs, they don't want to go near the fence. It doesn't hurt them, but it zaps them so they don't pass it. And then they move the fence, so they continue to graze in new property. So they're eating acorns and roots and all natural things that pigs eat. And that's what he does with these pigs. With chickens, the same thing. He has these enormous chicken houses, and they roll them to new environments. And so on his farm, this chicken house, the hen house, has rollers on it. And they'll move it to a new area, and the chickens... My chickens, I open the gates and my chickens run around my yard, and then they go back in the hen house at night. It's what they do.
It's also stimulating for them because they get a new environment all the time.
Yes, and they're free. They're literally free. And when you get eggs from those kind of chickens, they're a dark orange, like a really dark, like a deep orange. And it's because it's much healthier. When you see something that says like vegetarian fed chickens, guess what? Chickens aren't vegetarians. They're fucking dinosaurs. I fed my chickens a mouse once. And here's another example of like the hierarchy of animals we love and animals we don't love. It's really interesting how this happened in my house. My kids found a hawk. The hawk slammed into, I think, a window or something. I'm not sure. We weren't there, but we found this wounded hawk. So my kids decided that what we're going to do is we're going to take this hawk and get it to a wildlife rescue organization. So they had to feed it because it was over the weekend and the rescue organization wasn't open. So they went to the pet store and they're called pinkies, which are these little tiny mice. Yeah. To the people listening, they're mice that they're baby mice, and they use them to feed snakes and stuff like that. And so they fed the hawk these pinkies, and there was one pinky left. And they got the hawk to the wildlife rescue organization. The hawk was taken care of and everything, and hopefully it was released into the wild. But we had one pinky left over, and my daughter wanted to raise it. And I said, sweetie, this is going to die. It's not. It has to eat milk. It's only been alive for a few days. It's just not going to last. I'm amazed it's still alive. And she was crying, and I said, but we just fed them to the hawks. Do you understand this? I go, there's one of two things we should do. I go, we should either bring it back to the pet store. No! I go, listen, if we don't bring it back to the pet store, it's going to die. We bring it back to the pet store. The pet store, I don't know if the mouse will accept it now that we've got our scent on it. I don't know how that works, but they're going to feed it to a snake.
They're just going to resell it.
Someone's going to buy it, or it might die because it hasn't eaten in 24 hours. I don't know. And our other option is we give it to the chickens. And there's all this crying and this and that.
At this point, had you known that the chicken was likely to eat this thing? Or
I knew it. I've seen them eat a mouse before.
Oh, really?
They're fucking ruthless, dude.
Yeah,
They're ruthless. Yeah. Like, I put that mouse down. It was not down on the ground for a fucking half a second when one chicken slammed it. Got it in his beak, and the other chickens were chasing this chicken around the hen house. Like, this chicken couldn't pause to try to eat this because all the other chickens knew what it had, and they were running around. It couldn't stop. It was running, and it's trying to eat it, and the other chickens are running with it, and it was just, I should have filmed it.
I had no idea.
Dude, they're monsters. They are
heard
fucking
they're
monsters.
pretty ruthless with each other, and they like to peck the shit out of each other.
They peck everything. Here's what's fucked up, man. They pecked my daughter a couple of times, and one time I almost killed one of them because it pecked her face. And my wife is like, it doesn't. No. I go, listen. It's trying to eat her. It just can't. Do you need to get this in your head? It's not that it doesn't know. It knows she's alive, and it's trying to fucking eat her. And if we held her down, those chickens would eat her. She's like, you get crazy with this. I go, I'm telling you right now, they are fucking dinosaurs. They're cold-blooded. They have the fucking brain of a pencil eraser, okay? Little tiny on the tip of your pencil. That's how big their fucking brain is.
Yeah. Walk, fuck, fight,
exactly.
Eat.
They'll eat everything. They follow my wife around, like she'll lift up rocks, and they dive under the rocks to try to get worms and anything that's there. They're little predators, man.
No shit.
They're straight up predators. So when you see like vegetarian fed, those aren't good eggs.
You're not doing any service to that animal.
They're omnivores, and they would eat meat all day long above grass if you gave it to them. They like that more. Like, my lawn is filled with grass, and they peck at the grass, and they eat all kinds of other stuff too, and they eat the chicken food that we buy. We try to buy the most nutritious chicken food available, and there's some brands that are like more diverse in the food and the nutrients that are in them. But the bottom line is they abandon all that shit when they see something live. They try to eat living things. That's what they want to do.
So that's the thing we got to be scared of most is chickens that are going to get big.
We're just lucky they're little.
Yeah.
Well, you ever heard of terror birds?
I like to tell people that all the time. It's just like, if you don't think that cat wouldn't fucking eat you if it was just a significantly larger, believe me, you'd have a different respect for the animal and the idea that, eating meat is natural.
Fuck yeah, dude. Fuck yeah.
Like a largemouth bass. If you're swimming in a pool big enough for a largemouth bass to eat you, you're done.
Like a grouper. Have you ever seen those giant groupers in Florida?
It's crazy.
They would eat a baby. 100%. If a baby was floating around, a grouper would come up. There was a nutty video of a grouper eating a shark.
I saw it.
Isn't that crazy?
Fucking crazy.
How big? The shark was like 3 feet long.
Yeah, swallowed it. Just put it right in his mouth. Such
Groupers.
a mammoth fucking animal.
It's like a giant largemouth bass from a Hobbit movie.
It's crazy.
They don't even seem real.
Yeah.
I don't know how big they get, but I think it's hundreds and hundreds of pounds.
What about that massive...
Look at this. Here it is.
Oh,
these people, they caught a shark, and they put the camera in the water to film this grouper that's coming up to the shark. So they have a small shark on the hook, and as they're reeling it in, and they're bringing it in, this video could use some editing. And as they're reeling it in, they've got this shark. It's not a small shark. It's about 3 feet long, maybe even more. It might even be 4 feet. And this grouper comes along and smashes it as they're trying to get it out of the water. Look at this. Boom!
Jesus Christ.
I mean, that grouper's got to be 200-300 pounds. I don't know how big they get, but I would assume they get to be like 300 or 400 pounds. How big are groupers, Jamie? I don't know. Let's end this with groupers. They taste good, though. You ever have a grouper sandwich?
No, I haven't.
I don't know if you would want to eat an old one like that.
Probably not.
Yeah, they get a little... I don't know. I don't know if that's the case with fish. I know it's the case
it's definitely the case with fish.
Is it?
When I go fishing, you don't want to keep your 11-pound walleye. You want to eat the between 3 and really 3-pound ones.
I went walleye fishing for the first time last year. Ooh,
good eating,
delicious.
Huh? Oh, yeah, perch and walleye.
Yeah, in Alberta, man. How big they get? 2.5 meters. 8 feet! Oh, my God! They can weigh as much as 790 pounds. Holy fucking shit. Wow, that is insane. I had no idea. 8 feet.
That could eat you.
700 fucking pounds. That is so crazy. Wow, I did not know they got that big. Oh my God, 8 feet. Do you imagine Shaquille O'Neal, a foot bigger than him, is a grouper? That's insane. Look at the size of that thing. There's one with a dude. Oh my God. This thing is bigger than the guy.
Look at the little fish is staying on the other side of the guy going like, fuck, no, I'm not coming around.
Yeah.
I'll stay and hide behind you.
It's hoping that the grouper like takes chunks out of that guy and like leaves a little for him. God, ocean is awesome.
Yeah, it is.
The ocean is so amazing.
Deep ocean, the more you learn about it. I mean, did you see in Japan that massive squid?
Squid, yeah.
That's crazy.
They're swimming with it.
I don't want to swim anywhere near that fucking thing. Now that's an evil predator right there. You do not want to get stuck in those tentacles.
Oh yeah, they are really evil, and they're so big.
Yeah.
What's really nuts is that giant squid were just a myth a couple of decades ago. They had no idea if they were real. Like they had never caught one of these things on camera. Now they have one. It looked like it was in a bay somewhere. It looked like it was really close to boats.
It's crazy to watch.
It was allowing people to swim with it. Like they never had caught one before. Like they didn't know if they were real. Then they started catching them.
I wouldn't swim with that thing.
I wonder how they're catching them. So because they're catching them much more frequently now. Like look at it. Look at the video of it. My God, what an amazing, amazing creature. The entire body flexible. Nothing but a beak. Like as far like it's the only thing that's hard. Do you know they found evidence really recently of gigantic, some sort of octopus type species that would be like a kraken? They're thinking by the size of the tentacles, this thing would be 100 feet long. And they found these enormous tentacles that were like, dinner plates.
Yeah.
And they're saying, okay, well, this is what the myths of the Kraken have always been. The Kraken was always this gigantic tentacled monster that would eat anything.
Look at that fucking thing.
Well, it's hard perspective. When you see it with a person, you get a real good idea of how enormous it is. But I think that thing is like 18 feet long or something crazy. But these Krakens, there's nothing left of them when they die. So what they found is the fossilized remains of the tentacles had died. When it had died, the tentacles had left an imprint on the ground on the bottom of the ocean. Cool. And so they got the fossilized remains of these tentacles. They're like, holy shit. And they realized, well, okay, this is where these myths come from. This was a real creature.
It's amazing how little we know in terms of what the deep ocean has available to it in terms of animal life. It's crazy. We're discovering stuff every day.
Yeah, they say we know more about the moon than we know about the ocean. Well, it's what is it, 70% of the Earth or something like that?
Yeah, I don't know.
Some giant percentage of the Earth is water, and the ocean floor, I think they've only examined like 5% of it, which is amazing. So 95% of this incredible, essentially wild world. I mean, it is a wild world.
And it all ultimately comes from the ocean. I mean, the ocean is what gives us life.
That's where
we have to respect it.
Supposedly it all came from, right? We all started off somehow or another as some little fucking fish thing.
I got to watch more Cosmos. That's another thing I can't get enough of.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
I'm so glad they brought that back, especially with Neil deGrasse Tyson. He has a great podcast, too. It's called Star Talk. It's awesome. It's really good.
Definitely check that out.
And it's all about a bunch of different subjects, too. Like, he had a really cool one with David Byrne from the Talking Heads about creativity, and he's just a really interesting, curious guy, Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah. He's got a great demeanor,
and
I like the way they do the Cosmos with the sort of the imagination and the
animation.
The animation, rather. Yeah,
it's
great. It's
awesome.
Very great. It's very engaging.
So we're good. Anything else?
Yeah, solid. SafeSmooshy.com. Follow me at. You never know when that Periscope broadcast is going to happen.
You have Periscope broadcast? What do you do?
You say you never know. You never know when that Periscope broadcast is going to happen.
So we should follow you on Twitter, Walrus Whisperer on
please.
Twitter.
Hit me up on Facebook and then Periscope. That's how I keep my voice alive, man.
Well, we're going to help you, man. We're going to help you keep your voice alive, for sure.
Can't thank you enough.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, fuckers. We'll be back tomorrow with the great Tom Segura. Until then, much love. Bye-bye. Mwah.